Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends across the world. I am CCP Yoten, and welcome back to the second day of our Anger Games tournament here Sunday, the 14th of April, 2024. I am so excited to have you all back. We have another exciting day of pitched combat between all these teams in our group stages. With me, of course, joining us again from yesterday, my very good friend Murray Rothbarrow, and the ever illustrious Wingnut Cross, live from down under. Gentlemen, good afternoon. I hope you're doing well.
Definitely
Yeah,
better.
no,
than
it's great to be back.
Yeah, Wingnut, it's good to see you too, my friend. I was worried we weren't going to have you after yesterday.
I think Kangaroo kicked the cable somewhere.
These things do happen. Now, people are going to make comments about how Wingnut may seem out of sync. He's just an evolved life form. He's a higher level of being. He exists temporally out of sync with the rest of us because he's elevated in that way.
I live with a permanent state of lag, so you guys can all keep up.
Well, we are excited to get started, friends. We are back. Like I said, we are back for day 2. This is still group staging. Nobody's at risk of going home right now. We're just doing a lot of seeding, moving teams around. And like yesterday, this is going to be an exciting time to get teams in a position where they can try new comps, where they can see what other people are flying, see what bands are going to look like. If you're not familiar, we went over these yesterday, but I'll go over them again today. The rules for this competition as it compares to AG5. In this competition, the teams can now use 150 points instead of 100. I misspoke yesterday. That's not just more points. Ships have been increased in certain, point quantities, but this allows for a little bit more granularity in their picks. So you now have 150 points instead of just 100. The match time has been reduced to 7 minutes because those last 3 minutes in previous contests were typically just cleanup time. If neither team has a lead of at least 20 points by the end of 7 minutes, we will go to a 3-minute overtime, at which point the C3 Red Giant wormhole effects kick in, where all of your overload bonuses are increased by 58%. That's not a damage increase, not necessarily, but it could be if you wanted to heat your guns. So that is a bonus that adds on to every ship in those last 3 minutes. At which point, after 10 minutes, of course, the game will conclude. The last big change is that the duplication rule was removed from last year. All we did instead was adjust point totals so that the over and underperforming ships are now valued appropriately in an attempt to give teams more comp choices. And we have seen a lot of those comp choices. We've seen a lot of interesting stuff. Yesterday, we saw a lot of cool rush comps. We saw the Gator unleashed for the first time in tournament play. Exciting times. Now Wingnut, I'm going to ask you because Murray saw this firsthand. Wingnut, have you ever encountered a Gator before?
Not gators, only crocodiles around here. But it was interesting to see them be used. I think they're still in a testing phase of all people using them. We're still going to wait to see where they actually end up,
I agree. I think it's interesting to see how they've played out already, how they've fitted well into those rush comps already. Murray, what did you see yesterday that really stuck out to you? What do you think are the strongest comps coming out of day 1?
I think there were 2 really big things that stuck out. One is the obvious one, the triple Orthrus. It went undefeated, if I recall correctly. It looked really nasty in a lot of situations, and you see a lot of people banning it. I think a more underrated one, which we might start to see a bit more as the tournament progresses, is the Widow plus T2 Cruiser Logi plus Vigilant comp.
Yeah.
We only saw that, I believe, 2 or 3 times, but when it was played, it looked pretty good. And it's something that people aren't banning as much as the Orthrus or the Gila, which are, much bigger ships. Mm-hmm. So I think it's something we will end up seeing a bit more of just because it's often open and it does seem to be pretty powerful.
Well, and we saw a couple times application of the double battleship fit, or the double battleship comp, rather. We haven't seen a lot of what we would call Kingslayer in the AT because those triple battleship sets are a little bit harder to run. but there's still a lot of room in here. The 7-man comp makes this interesting, right? Because this limits what people are able to put on grid. It limits the a lot of the extra support that you might want to bring if you want to bring a DPS heavy comp. So you're right. We've seen triple Orthrus very strong early on. In fact, the triple Orthrus went up against the triple Gila, which we thought was one of the more robust comps that we had seen so far. But that triple Gila comp got smoked by the triple Orthrus. I imagine we're going to see a lot of that, especially that man, those Orthruses specifically getting banned out in a lot of matches yesterday and showing up in every match they weren't banned in, just because of how strong they are. Well, folks, we're going to be getting going here in just a couple of minutes. But before we do, I want to let everybody know that we do have a second stream going up right now. That stream is at twitch.tv/Eve Tournaments. That's twitch.tv/Eve Tournaments. If you're on this stream, you get channel point betting. And if you're on that stream, you get drops. So what you can do, I know this is going to be a crazy idea. You can just watch both. No one's going to stop you. They're not your dad. You can just watch both and then get the benefit of both. In fact, I'm pretty sure I saw our very good friend Brett Thomas yesterday mention that if you watch every hour of the second stream, you missed out on, you were like 99% of the way to that drop. So you can continue to watch in that stream and get that drop and then get any additional drops that come afterwards. So very exciting to have both of these options. There are going to be some commentary over there, no cameras, but you will hear great commentary. I know that our friends Nuke and Wally Marts are going to be over there at some point today, which is going to be very cool to see them do their thing. But here on the main channel, we're going to be streaming everything that is happening in our main system, or our main arena rather, and we'll have commentary, we'll have guests, we'll have a bevy, a slew of great casters and commentators here on the couch and also in our arena casts as well. Very cool to have this all going on. Big thanks, of course, to Dirk and Soft for putting this all together, and for our friends at CCP, myself included, apparently, which is wild to even say. But we're excited to do this. We've got the rest of today, then we'll have next weekend and the weekend after as we progress into this Anger Games tournament. So we are going to go ahead and look at bans. We've got about 7.5 minutes until this game starts. So we're going to get into this early, talk a little bit about bans, talk a little bit about these comps, and what we are expecting to see from these teams going into this first match, which is, of course, between Odin's Call and Aggressively Mid-Tier, two teams with extensive tournament experience. Odin's Call specifically has is in the upper echelon, the upper ranks of all teams that have ever competed in these tournaments, and it's exciting to see what they're going to bring out. Odin's has banned the Paladin, the Zarmazd, and the Curse, and Aggressively Mid-Tier has banned the Loki, the Gila, and the Orthrus. Murray, Paladin, Zarm, Curse. This is an interesting setup. I mentioned in the break before this that the Paladin seems like an odd choice since it's not used especially often, though we did see it used to great effectiveness yesterday. What do you think Odins are thinking here with this Pally, Zarm, and Curse ban set?
The Zarm in particular looks like it's something that's targeted at Rote, right? It's a ship they pulled out yesterday. Not too many other teams have pulled it out. So it really does seem like a targeted ban there. The Curse, a bit more standard. The Paladin, we haven't seen too much, but the times we've seen it, it's been very good at its kind of particular situation of projecting damage downfield and looking to really blow stuff up at range. Now, from what I've seen watching Odin's Call in the past, they love to cook, and they really love to cook on weird kiting setups. And so when I see the Paladin ban, I see the Curse ban, to me, that is somewhat indicative that they might be looking to try and do one of their classic weird kiting comps where they've also like got some E-War mixed in somehow.
Sure, yeah.
And they're really trying to find some other things going on there.
That is, you make a good point, and they've used those well, or rather at a high level of effectiveness in previous tournaments. Obviously, Odin's is you might even say aggressively high tier. But we've talked before too about how a lot of those comps that are higher on control, higher on ECM, can have some trouble in this tournament format because you just don't have the same number of bodies on grid to make those to really flesh those comps out. So you end up having to trade either additional support or you have to trade DPS, which can be a problem. We saw that in at least one match yesterday as well. Wingnut, let's look at this these bans from aggressively mid-tier. The Loki, the Gila, the Orthrus. We mentioned the Gila and the Orthrus as being strong contenders for bans throughout the day. The Loki as well. We saw that a lot yesterday. What do you think when you see this kind of setup in a ban list? Is this just a stock standard thing, or is there something more going on here?
Feels pretty stock standard to me, but I don't really know exactly what they're flying at the moment.
Mhm.
Those are definitely some of the two heavy hitters in terms of Navy cruisers and pirate cruisers. But the Loki, I think, is going to be the one that points what they're trying to do. Sorry, that's the ban I'm looking at. Going, what are you thinking about? What are you not liking here?
Yeah, it does point towards maybe a trying to set up some kind of kite setup. They don't want to be webbed down. Maybe they don't want to. But you might also see a hyena in that kind of setup, but we're not seeing the hyena here either. So it's hard to say. Who knows? Well, folks, we are going to be getting started here in the next couple of minutes. Before we do, I just want to remind everybody as well that we do have an active chat staff in Twitch chat. If you are following along, I think they will be providing us with additional content throughout the day, though I can't speak to that too extensively. I don't know everything they have in planned yesterday. I'm sure we're no doubt going to get another emote only chat here in just a little while, which will be exciting. Also, big shout out, you can see it here behind me. Big shout out to our friend CCP Zealous. I'm gonna look aside. You can see back here the arena of these Anger Games behind me in space. Tornadoes, lightning, this weird kind of rock formation with drones. Very cool. This is the most elaborate, most interesting setup we've ever had for one of these tournaments in terms of just stuff going on back here, and there's a lot of it. It feels crazy to sit here and say this to you because this is just a green screen. There's nothing here, but believe me, it looks very cool on the screen. So shout out to CCP Zealous. I know he's done a lot of work with this over the last couple of months to get this set up for us. We have a ton of volunteers, a ton of other staff who are working diligently throughout the week and throughout the last couple of months as well to get us to where we are today. And we are going to be relying on them, and as well as all of our commentary staff and our casters throughout the rest of the next couple of weeks. So as soon as I hear the word, we'll go down to the arena. We should only be about a minute left, I believe, until our teams. Yep, only about 60 seconds until our teams are on grid. So in the meantime, let's Murray real quick, and Wingnut will do both of you as well. Murray, what do you think is going to be the strongest set that we're going to see coming out today in the second day of tournament play?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. Not triple battleship, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
I think it's like 0 for 5.
Yeah. I agree on that.
Well, let me change the question a little bit. What do you hope to? What do you think is going to be an interesting set? Maybe not the one that is going to get the most use.
I want to see some proper control versus control. We haven't seen too much of that yet.
What about you, Wingnut? What do you think?
I'm very much an Unga Bunga brawl at 0 kind of guy, so I'd be happy to see a bunch of brawling stuff, but I suspect we're going to see a lot of high DPS but tanky comps. Navy cruisers, faction cruisers, and Navy battle cruisers. Just send it.
I
It
love
seems to be
that.
what's working.
We did have one Hyperion show up yesterday. Wingnut, I don't know if you saw it.
I did see it. I was very sad.
I know it did not do well. Maybe we'll see
Nah.
some more Unga Bunga action today. But folks, I believe we do have teams in the arena right now. So we will be going down for the first match of today's set of matches here in the Anger Game 6 between Odin's Call and Aggressively Mid-Tier. We have Dujek One Eye and Chad Flame, the man himself, on the call down in the arena. We'll be back here in just a few minutes.
Hello and welcome to the arena. I am Dujek and I'm here with Chad Flame. We have Odin's against Aggressively Mid-Tier, and Odin's are bringing the weird kitey bullshit we heard about. They are not deterred by the Orthrus ban and have taken 3 Jackdaws instead. Chad, tell me about the Rote team.
We are looking at an armor drone setup with an Oneros Logi get in for some newts and some more drone power, and those Vexor Navies, which are going to be tanky tackle, as well as that drone DPS.
How do you see this matchup going? Do you think the drones are going to make it over to kill the kiting stuff, or do you think that's going to present a problem for aggressively mid-tier?
I think it's going to come down to they might get a couple targets with the drones chasing them, but the team might need to spread out a little bit with that Kitey shield setup to make those drones have to travel across the arena. If that happens, that's going to be a real pain for those drones to actually apply damage properly, and it's going to take a while for them to get follow-up targets.
Yeah, I think Odin's has definitely pulled a little bit of wool over the aggressively mid-tier's eyes here by taking ships that we normally aren't seeing used that much as like the bulk of their kiting setup. You see a lot fewer Nighthawks compared to Orthrus's and slightly faster ships, but they're going straight for the Oneros of Arima here and putting some decent damage into him.
Yeah, I think most teams, would prefer that Sleipnir that's a lot quicker, but because they went with the Jackdaws and the Cyclone, they wanted to have as many missiles as possible to avoid disruption being hard on them. As you see, the Sentinel is only disrupting that Nighthawk. And as I say that, though, it seems the drones have switched over to that Vexor Navy, and they do appear to be getting webbed down by that Rapier, doing a great job screening.
Yeah, also Rapier, not the most popular choice compared to the Hugin and the Hyena in a lot of these comps. They're opting to pay more points in order to get a slightly sturdier platform.
And it seems to be paying off as it stands right now, as the team cannot really get onto these Kitey shield ships, and they're just kiting away Odin's, and it looks like the drones are not really getting caught up on anything either, so the drones are just following things in space, but at the same time, Odin's is not really having an easy time breaking anything as they swap over to the other Vexor Navy.
Yeah, I have a short name, despite having a long name, is getting a decent stretch on those drones, just stringing them out across the entire arena while they're trying to be killed. They are defensive mode definitely now, and they're just tanking this. I think Rote need to swap their damage over to something else. They're not killing this Jackdaw.
Yeah, it seems like they're struggling to kind of pick a target because the drones are taking so long to travel. Well, Odin's is just trying the tank on a lot of different targets, seeing if they can get an opportunity to get that Oneros to maybe make a mistake or catch something out of position. Maybe the Oneros can't rep it. Aggressively Mid-tier has done a good job keeping their ships up, but not a good job applying that damage because those drones are just getting strung out, chased around, chasing stuff around the arena and not doing any damage.
Yeah, having no Ewar on their team for the Odin's team is definitely letting that Oneros operate at full capacity. And the Oneros is also pretty good against kinetic locked ships that Odin's have a bunch of, so despite the initial damage to it, nothing else has come of it. And the Vexor Navy of Kibit is taking a decent chunk of damage now. We'll see if they go down. They're also putting the Jackdaws on the Sentinel of Black Panther, who is dead. They went down just suddenly.
I do not know if that Sentinel is going to make a massive difference, as it was only really TDing one ship, it felt like, the whole game, probably stacking turret disruptions on there. But still, a ship down is a ship down, and we're starting to see split damage between the Jackdaws and the upper end, which I think is a great call, making that Oneros really have to put in work to keep his guys up. And the more ships that go down, the less damage, the less opportunity to tackle something, and it's going to start swinging in Odin's favor.
I think despite being only one, that Nighthawk probably does nearly a third or a quarter of the damage of the Odin's team, and they have gone over to their Narrows now and are doing chunks of damage to Rima, who needs to get some help here. Normally when you take in the Narrows, you have a lot of rep drones to help it, but the drone comps do not have any help coming for it. He's on his own and must save himself.
At the same time, there's still damage going into that Vexor Navy, and he's not holding the greatest. Starting to pull back armor a little bit now, but a switch to the Pontifex, I think, from those Jackdaws. They're just picking targets, shooting them with the Jackdaws, and almost going with an opposite approach with their top end, shooting an entirely different target. I kind of like that in this setup, not focusing the damage, really stressing out that Oneros, which just went down, and soon to fall will be that Pontifex and Vexor Navy.
Yeah, despite the Rote team having lost none of their DPS at the moment, I have no hope for them anymore. They're just going to lose the Vexor Navy, the Pontifex, the Magus going down. I think that maybe 11 heavy drone equivalents isn't really enough damage to bring to the table for a tournament match.
Yeah, sometimes in the Alliance tournament, when you have 10 guys on grid, note we only have 7, so it's a lot different. You lose some of those ships. Having something towards the end of application or slowing ships down, such as a Hyena on your end, might actually help those drones catch up and apply. And it seems like they weren't able to tackle anything, didn't have those long-range webs or anything to really help them apply. They did have those Geddon Navy heavy newts that do reach out a little bit farther, but if you're in these fast shield ships, you should be able to pick the range you want to stay away from that, get a Navy, and execute the kite as they did. As the Jackdaw actually does take a little bit of damage, as the drones did catch up to him for a second.
Yeah, Graves Grace seems to be fine for now. Kibit is not. The Vexor Navy is going down momentarily. I think Rote, in this case, were hoping to face heavy weapon disruption and grind out a win by having extra links, a tough Logi setup, and well-tanked ships comparatively, but they faced the opposite. All damage, all speed, low tank, no E-War. Basically the opposite of what they'd hoped to fight.
Yeah, it does seem like they might have been trying to pin Odin's down to a certain comp, bringing a counter, or maybe they just felt comfortable with the setup and got some interesting matches and scrims and success. But against this Kitey setup, it did not seem to do very well. Like I said, the ship's just outrunning the drones the entire match. They were not able to catch anything, apply those newts, have the drones apply, and they just got kited, and a good showing by keeping that kite up by Odin's Call, as this Geddon Navy is about to go down.
Yeah, there's always this one point in a match where one team certainly has won, but they just have to prove it by wiping their opposition entirely off the face of the earth. And with that, we're going back to the arena.
Welcome back to the desk, folks. I am CCB Yote, and of course, with me, Wingnut Cross and Murray Roth Bardo. And the first out the gate, we saw what we kind of expected we'd see a lot of today. Another one of these missile kite comps that have been so strong, with a triple Jackdaw setup versus drone aggro with the Navy Geddon, the Oneros, the dual Vexors, and then a slew of back-end support ships. Not working out, though, well for the team from aggressively mid-tier. Murray, what is it that with these kite comps that cause so much trouble for drone heavy setups specifically?
So the main issue is that drone comp's strength really comes from being able to buy itself time. It wants to buy itself time via heavy E-War or by kiting. And against a kite comp, you never have that time, because the kite comp can almost always shoot you from wherever it is. It has the same range as you for the most part. And when you're the lower DPS comp in that situation, you can really struggle.
Well, and two, we saw a lot of this yesterday as well. Drone travel time causing such a problem for teams, especially when you want to try and switch targets, because your drones are going to take at least 5 to 10 seconds to cross a 70, 80 kilometer span between different ships on grid, all of which can reach out and hit you if they're within range. And that can cause a lot of problems for guys who are trying to hot swap. You can see drones coming, your Logi has a heads up, and that does cause a lot of problems for these teams. Wingnut, let's talk for a second about what we saw Odin's doing in that match, which was splitting damage. And you don't see a ton of that, especially in smaller formats, because teams generally don't tend to bring a lot of DPS. But in that last match, with Odin's having the Nighthawk, the Cyclone, and those 3 Jackdaws, what benefit does Odin's have to try and split their DPS across numerous different ships? You saw them putting damage on the Vexors, the Sentinel, the Magus, all at the same time. How does that benefit the Odin's team against a team like aggressively mid-tier?
You're just trying to catch out the Logi. It just tends to be the way it goes. I'm not the biggest fan of them splitting there, because they had the ability just to nuke the Oneros, but honestly, Odin's hard called that match, because they splurged hard on the kite fit. They even bought a rapier. I don't think they even needed it. but they went hard. It was almost like they knew what was coming. It's almost like they were guessing something along this line. Was like, okay, we're ready to go. And the moment they got into the match, they countered it perfectly. So, respect Odin's. That was very well flown from them.
It is, and I want to ask you this question too, real fast, before we move to the next match. When you're in a situation like the Rote team found themselves in, where you're basically up against a matchup that is your hard counter, is there anything you can do piloting wise to mitigate a lot of the disadvantage you find yourself in, or are you more or less just screwed from the beginning of the match?
That is very situational, but yeah, you always got to try and find what's their win condition, what's ours, and try and find a way to get to that scenario. Now, these guys are obviously a lot better than me. They know what they're doing a lot better than that, but
Same.
it's when you know you're screwed, you feel like, okay, what am I looking for here? And it doesn't look like they found it in that scenario.
I think you're right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next match. We have Tempest Calcif versus Module Clickers Anonymous. Module Clickers, captained by my homie Vladislav Slakin. Excited to see them back in this tournament. Tempest Calcif banning the Geddon Navy, the Gila, and the Widow, while Module Clickers Anonymous banning the Jackdaw, the Barghest, the Gila, and the Sleipnir. Murray, there's that Widow we talked about earlier, plus the Geddon and the Geddon Navy. What's going on here?
Well, they definitely hate drones.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. The Geddon Navy, Gila, there's definitely a theme there. I'm not too surprised by the Widow. I know that Tempest Calcif, just, in past tournaments, you've really often seen them kind of skew towards these like interesting armor control style setups where they've really built some interesting compositions that other teams don't think of. And so the Widow very much fits that category, and I would not be surprised if they're taking a look at that and seeing that their options lose specifically to the Widow.
Yeah. Wingnut, the team from Module Clickers Anonymous, bringing a slew of shield ships, a couple standouts here as well, banning the Jackdaw, banning the Jackdaw, the Barghest, the Gila, and the Sleipnir. Looks like they're trying to avoid some kind of rush. What do you think?
Sounds like more like no kite for you. You're not allowed to run away. No light missile Jackdaws, just remove small scale. No Sleipnir to try and either rush or kite, because we do see boom headshot on occasion. It is a lot of, you're not allowed to use shield, and you're not allowed to run away. So we'll have to see if maybe the team has an opinion on that and has a way of beating that idea. But it looks like they just don't want to see anyone running away from them with shields.
I agree. Interesting, though, that neither one of these teams has banned out the Orthrus, especially when we talk about banning out the Gila, and you talk about banning out ships like the Jackdaw that are so standard in those kind of sets, but leaving the Orthrus open. The Orthrus still a strong ship in those same sets. And there are other good replacements for the Jackdaw as well. Maybe not as versatile as the Jackdaw tends to be. The Jackdaw has a lot of room that you can play with, especially with its range, because those sharpshooter Jackdaws have so much range they can work with. It can be really, really oppressive. However, the Barghest getting banned out again. We saw a lot yesterday. Murray, these Barghest double Barg sets can be so dangerous. Why is that?
The Barghest is infinite range. If it wants to shoot you, it's pretty rare unless you've got a lot of EWAR that you can stop it from shooting you. And so we've seen a lot of Barghest comps that are really good at destroying the low end.
Yeah. Well, especially these rapid heavy Bargs can cause so many problems for so many different kinds of ships. Give them a little bit of support, and they can be absolutely hazardous to anybody within nearly 100 kilometers of them. So, with that being said, folks, we are moving on now to Tempest Calcif versus Module Clickers Anonymous, back in the arena with Dujek and Chad Flame. We'll see you back here in just a couple.
Welcome to the arena. I am Chad Flame here with Dujek One Eye to bring you the match between Tempest Calcif and Module Clickers. And we are seeing an interesting setup here, as it is a Leshek Pilgrim setup being brought by the team from Tempest Calcif. Dujek, what are we seeing from the team from Module Clickers?
They have brought a rush with 3 Lokis. They definitely were expecting something kitey and thought they would have to chase it down with long-range webs, but Lokis are still impressively tanky and do a lot of damage. With them, they also have a Claymore to provide links, and they're going to go in and try to kill and brawl out the Leshek comp, while avoiding tackle from the Maguses and the Ashimu.
I think it's very interesting to see that Module Clickers banned off a lot of those shield ships that you might see in kites, even potentially rush ships, and then brought something outside of their own bans, maybe trying to play some mind games here with Templus. And we'll see if that Pilgrim has the correct weapon disrupting, if it's stacked all in one. I'd hope not. It's probably mixed up. Be a good call. And we'll see how much this Leshek can actually do to the Module Clickers team.
Yeah, the Pilgrim has been brought here because it is cheaper than the Curse. For those fewer points, you are losing one of the disruption options, and you are losing some range and power on your newts. So they don't have as much disruption as you normally would see, and they're kind of moving a little bit back with the Leshek team to spread themselves out for the rush here, and they're taking everything straight on the Leshek. This is a very all or nothing tactic where if they lose the Leshek, they're going to lose the game, that being 90% of their damage share. But if the Leshek wins, they will also win.
Yeah, they use that Ashimu, the long-range webs on that to try and screen off some of these Lokis, but the Lokis having longer-range webs than that Ashimu does, they get right on top of that Leshek, and as you predicted, they're going for that Leshek headshot to try and really turn the tides of the match into their favor immediately. Well, it looks like they're also using the low end and drones to try and get some pressure onto that Talia to split those reps up.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the Thalia. They don't have a lot of effort to spend distracting from the Leshek. The Leshek probably also has smart bombs to make those drones ineffective against it. The bursts, however, are way less tanky than the Thalias and might just go down so that the Lokis can fall secondly. The Lokis and Claymore also have selectable damage types, and they're going to try to hit the Leshek in multiple different resists so that the reactive doesn't spool up completely against one damage type. But the Leshek is going to get more tanky as this goes on because of the reactive.
I'm looking to see this Loki is getting really low, and probably it's not going to hold much longer as this Leshek starting to spool up on it. But heat, from modules might start to take effect if you're really heating your modules to start this match. Loki might go down, the Leshek might start to lose tank a little bit due to heating its hardeners and maybe its local rep, but we see a Loki go down, and with that Leshek might actually start pulling back.
Yeah, the heat of the damage from the rush team is being offset by the heat of the Lodge of the Thalias. Both those are going to go down quite quickly. You cannot heat a ham ship for very long, and you can't heat the reps for very long, but the Leshek guns, they heat forever, basically. It's only a single gun, it's not getting heat sourced from anything else, and that Leshek is just clawing its way back. It is in no danger of dying anytime soon, I think.
Yeah, it's starting to look like they went all in on this Leshek, hoping that they could get that headshot kill. If they did, they would probably have won this match, as it is the real head of the Templus Calcif team. As I say that, though, he's starting to dip a little bit lower than he was a second ago. He was wrapped up nearly full and is going back down again. But the Lokis, it does not look like they're going to be able to tank once that Leshek starts really ramping up and doing what it's known best for, applying that massive damage that it does.
Yeah, the Pilgrim and the Ashimu here bring a good set of newts with them. They are definitely shutting off the hardeners of these Lokis for large parts of the time while they're being killed. Lokis do not have great cap. Despite having guns that don't use cap, they are easy to newt out, and they don't get themselves back into the positive there pretty quickly. So the Lokis with the hardeners off, way less tanky.
Yeah, and like you said last match, it seems like the gas has kind of run out for Module Clickers. They were unable to kill that Leshek. It seems like they're trying to turn slowly to the Pilgrim, and they tried the Talia and they didn't apply very well. They're going over to the Pilgrim. If you couldn't break a Leshek, I think you might have some issues still breaking a Pilgrim, as the second Loki, has gone down for Module Clickers.
Yeah, it really is an all or nothing tactic to try to get the Leshek. The Leshek also shoots quite far, so it's hard to get out of the range. If the Leshek were a different high damage, tanky, brawling battleship, they could have tried to get around the sides to kill Maguses and pick off the Lodge before they engaged proper. But against this, the Calcif team is just battle balling, and that isn't really a feasible option with the range difference between these weapon systems.
And I think Magic Clickers had a good start to the match. They played it correctly, went in there, tried to headshot. They put some drones on the Talia to maybe split some reps off of the Leshek, which did happen a little bit in the beginning. But once that Leshek started spooling up, and once the newts, like you said, started taking effect on some of the hardeners and the webs, it started to, they lost their charge, and the Leshek started to pull back. And then when they lost that Loki, it just was not enough damage to break anything on grid at that point forward. And at this point, it seems like Tempest is just cleaning up the rest of this rush setup that Magic Clickers has brought.
In older tournament formats, especially ones that allowed T3C logistics ships, you would see comps like this that are reminiscent of the Tinker setups of old, where good teams would not only bring DPS and ferocity to the match, but also good positioning in trying to bump off support ships. Thalias do not have very long rep range, at least if they want to rep at maximum power, and teams have tried to separate them from the Leshak, which in this case just didn't happen. It's hard to do. I'm not even sure if it's possible, but that would have been one avenue to leverage their DPS a little further than they did.
They could have got a bump, and I'm sure that Thalia probably would have got back in there quick. But with that Leshek getting as low as it did, there is anything you could do to get that Leshek down is the win condition for the Module Clickers. And like you said, what you got to do is get it down. Anything you can come up with that, even if it's wild, might work. Can swing matches. We've seen some crazy things throughout tournament history. But this Claymore is not going to live very long either. It's tackled down, and every bit of E-War possible on it. And with that, we are going to send it back to the desk.
Rush versus a very strange kind of Leshak all-in setup. Let's talk about this, Murray. I want to know at face value, when you have a single big target like the Leshak versus a rush comp, you would think the rush comp just bursts down the Leshak. What happened here? What keeps the Leshak alive and allows that team from Tempest Calcif to pull this one out?
So I think this is one of those key differences that you see in the Anger games versus the AT. In the AT, that strategy is much more viable because you often have 5 or even 6 cruiser plus size DPS ships doing big damage. And the amount of Logi in both of these tournaments is the same. It's 2 frigates, 1 cruiser. And so in the AT, you have this much bigger damage pool to try and headshot battleships with. Here, you only have 4 ships on the DPS front. And so, especially given that those ships, the Claymore does a bit less than like a Nighthawk, for example, Lokis are high damage, but not quite like Sleipnir level. You really struggle to try and headshot a battleship here.
Yeah, and I want to ask you too, Wingnut, real fast, because there were some comments during, I think, the cast as well, and maybe some stuff in chat as also, about going after the Leshak first, whether or not that was the right call. In this kind of setup where you do have a primary damage dealer and not a whole lot of other DPS, it does seem tempting to go after the Leshak first. Would it have been a smarter call to try and rush down those Thalias, especially when you have Loki webs, you can kind of get those under control, or were they stuck in a position where they had to get the Leshak and that was their win condition?
Trying to shoot a Thalia with hams is the worst and the best of days.
Yeah.
Could it maybe work? Maybe could they put drones on it? Maybe got it. Maybe. But even if you did that, by the time you got the Thalia down, you probably lost a DPS ship at that point. At that point, you're dead. It doesn't matter. You kind of have to just lick the stamp, send it, and pray. The other option is maybe trying to keep range, but even then, you're a ham comp. You can't even do that. So it was a very hard one to do. They picked their chance. They went, we have to just rush this thing down. They tried. They failed. It's not the worst, of course.
Well, and I have one other question too, because we saw during the bans the blue team from Module Clickers banning out the Sleipnir, where and I'm not sure if the points quite work out for this, so I could be wrong, but fitting the Sleipnir into that Claymore spot, or maybe bringing a Nighthawk, do either of those give you enough DPS instead of the Claymore, maybe even if you brought like a Fleet Cyclone instead of that Claymore to do a little bit of extra DPS, would that have been enough to push through the Leshak in the situation that we had? Because the Leshak looked close. It was in half armor at one point.
There's a lot of things that could change. That's always the joy of it. It's
Yeah.
putting different ships here and there. What they had, they did with the best they could. Could they have picked a different ship for that comp if they knew it was coming? Sure, absolutely. But the Nighthawk worked there. It might not have worked on the next comp. So I'll give them a pass.
We're not wrong about that. Certainly, it could have been in either one of these two directions. But enough talking about that one. Let's move now on, Murray and Wingnut, to the next match. We have, oh, yes, of course, only need 2 comps against the Center for Advanced Surrendering. Now, that was only needs 3 comps yesterday. I don't know if that was on our end or on their end, or maybe they just decided they didn't need that 3rd comp and they're back just to 2. Either way, only needs 2 comps, banning the Blackbird, the Abaddon, and the Orthrus, while the Center for Advanced Surrendering banning the Gila, Ishtar, Cyclone Fleet. Murray, let's talk Blackbird, Abaddon, Orthrus. I know we're all excited to see the Abaddon get banned out as well. What are you thinking? Obviously, Orthrus, very strong. Blackbird, we've seen it used to great effectiveness. What's going on? What do you speculate is happening here?
I choose to believe that the Abaddon ban is actually them just preventing themselves from accidentally taking it, seeing as it's performed pretty poorly so far here in the tournament. The Blackbird's a little new. That's interesting. Jam's a classic tool when you're looking at a lower DPS tournament, trying to find some ways to deal with Logi. So perhaps they're concerned about those gems. They think they want to run a shield comp where they don't have Seabos, something like that.
I do want to make one. I've been corrected. Thank you, Dirk, for correcting me. This team only needs 2 comps is different than the only needs 3 comps. They are 2 separate teams with 1 word different between them. That's on me.
And 1 brain cell when it comes to naming.
Yeah, no shit. Okay, Center for Advanced Surrendering, Wingnut, the Gila, the Ishtar, and the Cyclone Fleet. Looks like they're trying to avoid drones. What do you think?
Sure. That's one way of interpreting, I think. They've just removed good cruisers, and the Cyclone Fleet's the more pointed ban. So what are they looking at? I actually don't know. That's a randomly sudden ban.
Well, and you do wonder about
what that one's for.
You do wonder about ships like the Cyclone Fleet, and somebody DL88889 in chat just mentioned this. Why would you ban the Cyclone Fleet? And I'll ask both of you this: when you see a ban like that for something that doesn't seem like it's being overused, doesn't seem unusually powerful, is that just a sign of like, hey, we've seen this before and we don't like it, or is it a sign of something predictive? Oh, we think you might try and bring this because we know of some comp that you're using. Murray, what do you think about that?
It's hard to say, really. Getting inside the head of teams is so difficult when you don't know what they've been seeing in scrims, when you don't know what they've been seeing or what they've read from the prior matches. Maybe they think that, the Cyclone Fleet issue is a key component in like the triple Orthrus style like kite comps, where, you have to ban both in order to make those kite comps weak. But it's hard to say, really.
I don't disagree. I will tell you right now, having looked at the teams on the grid, they have a fascinating set of comps that we have not seen yet, and they are landing right now. So we're going to go ahead and move to the arena. We have only need 2 comps versus the Center for Advanced Surrendering back into the arena with Dujek One Eye and Chad Flames. Chad Flame, singular, rather. We'll be back here in the couch in just a few minutes.
Hello and welcome back to the arena. I'm Dujek and with me is Chad Flame. We have a rush comp against a medium gun control. Castabout's Center for Advanced Surrendering have brought an Absolution and a Drekavac. Do you think that's enough damage to beat a rush?
It's going to be close. They do have a Nurgle and a Confessor to do some screening for them. Guardian reps are nothing to, shove off the shoulder there, and those Sentinels might be able to reduce a little bit of that incoming damage, but it's going to be a matter of, the one scalpel Logi, is it going to be able to keep up with, like you said, low damage, but one Logi. You know, it's a trade-off that's kind of interesting to see. These are some interesting comp stuff.
I think the Drekavac and the Absolution, both being bonused to tank, are going to have to do some of their fair share of tackling here. If they lose their Guardian, they lose. The Sentinels have to put in some good damage to try to shut off Hardeners and reduce damage as well. And they're going to keep people at an arm's range to try to take less damage from medium autocannons that don't do full range unless they are very close.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. The screening is going to be what makes this match. Are they going to be able to split up this? Oh, they're pulling back with the rush comp. That's an interesting strategy. Maybe hoping not to get split up, which would have been the move for Center for Advanced Sufferings. They're not giving them the chance to. They're pulling back. They're regrouping, and we will see what their next move will be.
Yeah, the Center for Advanced Suffering are not going to kill a lot at range. What you often see in these kinds of matches is if Center for Advanced Suffering were too focused on stopping the rush, they might overcommit their tackle speed bumps into the rush team, and they could pick them off first and then turn around and get on to the stuff that they wanted to. There's a little bit of damage going on to Lou and the Kizrael, but he has one Logi frigate with him. We've seen some one Logi frigate comps recently, and I've seen them in practice as well, and it's just a way of not having something that falls over as quick as a Tech 1 Logi frigate pair. You get more ships, and you get something that is cheaper than a Tech 1 Logi cruiser, which are also usually kind of flimsy.
A couple interesting things with the Center for Advanced Suffering team. That Drekavac's going to need to spool up. So if range does get played around with by the only need 2 comps team, that Drekavac will not be doing optimal damage if they pull that off. Also, the Sentinels only having 2 TDs out right now. I'm wondering if they are stacked with GDs more than TDs, because I would expect maybe a little bit more. Maybe they're just conserving capacitor and waiting for that rush to start. But you'll have to see, as it is turned into a positioning game, waiting for openings, overcommits, and opportunities. Both teams are just hoping to see an opening that will help them before they pounce.
Yeah, Les Routier in the Vagabond is turning around kind of on the side here, going a little bit, and it seems like Ian and the Nurgle is having a bit of a scrim back and forth there, trying to catch a hold of him. Ian Wakefield in the Nurgle is taking some damage as the rush team encircles the center team a little bit here, but they have decided to at least start going in, and they're going to try to catch this Guardian.
Yeah, they did a good job, it looked like, going over the top right side and seeing the Guardian a little bit closer to them and the tackle and damage forward and trying to take up the opportunity as they go in. There's still some of those ships sitting back. They might be reassessing their decision, but the Kizrael is scrammed and the Confessor is going down rapidly. That was a quick kill for the only need 2 comps team.
Yeah, Jay Ambrell in the Guardian is tackled here. Lou Mahan and the Kizrael burned away to break the spool and just get out of their consciousness entirely. And everyone is coming in now to catch the Guardian. I think that might have been MJD play as well. I didn't quite catch it. That was an MJD play, I've been confirmed. And now, if they get the Guardian down, they're going to have a much better chance of taking away this game.
Yeah, that Kizrael is not tanking very well either. Neither is that Harpy. That Harpy's probably not going to survive due to the fact that the only need 2 comps team has brought a single Logi, and it's going to have to pick who he wants to keep up, and that Kizrael is the person he needs to keep up so they can get this Guardian finished off and have the DPS to rush down the rest of this comp.
Yeah, I think that for a rush team, I would trade a Kizrael for a Guardian almost any day of the week when we're this close. And they're just going to turn onto this Absolution, I suspect, who is already taking decent damage. They're going to lose Lou first, but No Polar in the Absolution is in 2/3 armor and is going down.
Yeah, like I said earlier on, those Sentinels aren't really getting much done because they're right on top of the team. They found that opening, going through the back, catching the Guardian out of position, or the rest of the team out of position of the Guardian, pushed forward, and really punished that. The Confessor tried his best to screen and got absolutely dumpstered, and so did that Guardian. Now they're just picking targets, like you said, and getting rid of whatever they can, and they're not really losing anything in return.
In a contrast to the previous game that we watched, in this one, they didn't just rush in to get a target. They went out, picked their positioning better, MJD'd while rushing in, and got the target that they wanted, taking away the Logi before they went for the tougher DPS. I think No Polar and this Absolution will go down at the same time or slightly before Ambrell, and then they're going to have to see. The Drekavac will have to go for a fresh spool when Amber dies, and Ian Wakefield might be killed first, going down at the same time as unnamed Frozenheart and the Harpy.
Yeah, even if they trade this Harpy and Kizreal for that Absolution, I don't think a Drekavac is going to be able to really do much against a Vagabond's tank if it does have Self-Rep on it. Broadswords can be fairly tanky. The Cinnamon probably will be his next target, trying to get rid of that DPS, but he might not even get a chance to start spooling on it, as the armor on that Drekavac is chewing through very quickly, but a Kizreal does go down.
Yeah, this is the Trig versus Minmatar war all over again. I estimate that the Drekavac can get up to about 900 DPS, so once he's off, the Nurgle isn't going to kill anything, whereas the Vagabond, Broadsword, and Cinnabal probably have at least 1,500 DPS between them.
Yeah, I really like that Broadsword being in there, just hick pointing things down, making sure that they can't get away, tackling into that Confessor, that Guardian, Absolution, Drekavac, really holding them down, making sure they can't go anywhere with the webs and the rest of the mids, it looked like, for the only two comps. Really punishing targets that get in their way or whatever is in that hick scram range. And I really like that shield rush setup, but the pulling back and going in when they knew what they needed to shoot. It was the same thing as the last match, but the Guardian is what they needed to shoot, and realize that might be a harder target to get to than a Leshek.
Yeah, only need two comps, got Aben and are getting Ian down now, and with that they're going to win on points. They probably do not have enough time to kill the Sentinels, who are kiting away in part, but that is a win for them, and they should be happy about that.
Yeah, any win is a win. Points might matter in tiebreakers. Rarely see those tiebreakers. But with that, we're saying 122 for only need two comps and 87 for Center for Advanced Sufferings, and we are sending it back to the dusk.
Interesting setups from both of these teams. I alluded to prior to the match. Double Kiz, not something that we'd seen before, versus an Abso Dreka Guard dual Sentinel setup. Murray, let's talk about this double Kiz setup. I was going to lead into this. I predicted it. I used my future sight to look into the now and say, oh, they brought a single scalpel as their Logi for this, whatever this weird kite setup is. Clearly, they're not thinking it. What are they doing here? But yet this team comes out on top. How are you able to stay or have the staying power you need to have to be on a grid with an Absolution, with a Drekavac, with only a single scalpel to support you?
So I think what was most interesting to me about this match, right, really is the fact that because of the setup they brought with the single Logi on one side, decent rush, with the setup on the other side, it was a match that came down to piloting. There was not just like a hard comp win. It was about whether or not they can actually split apart this shield rush to hold down ships with different things, and then kind of buy their Guardian enough time, buy their team enough time to grind out this rush. And the shield rush, to their credit, did a pretty good job getting around that. The Absolution wasn't able to tackle anyone. The Nurgle wasn't able to tackle anyone. And so you saw a bunch of these fast shield ships kind of dive past the enemy DPS, stay alive by virtue of just not being in range of them, and go kill that Guardian. Yeah,
and Wingnut, let's talk about the Guardian for a second. The Guardian, in a position where he has to do a lot of things simultaneously, trying to prioritize his own reps, trying to prioritize making sure his team is kept up with a lot of incoming damage. As a Guardian pilot or any Logi pilot, when you're in a position where you're being rushed and and you have all of this incoming damage, is there anything that you can do as a pilot to mitigate that damage, or are you just stuck in a position where you have to kind of quietly accept your own fate?
I like to compare it to a Kobayashi Maru situation, that there was no real winning strategy at that point because he had like 6 ships coming at him. Any direction he went, there was going to be a ship waiting for him. He was basically buying time, repping friends, and praying to the almighty God that someone made a mistake that wasn't on his team.
Yeah.
He did really well, like all things considered, but the moment he tried to pull away after their team started wrapping around, caught in seconds because they're all fast ships. Like, you can only run so far.
Yeah.
He did well, but that was not going to be an easy situation for him. He was just going to get caught no matter what.
Well, you're absolutely right. And there's something to be said, too, about how much value the Vaga, the Broadsword, and the Sentinel had for this only needs 2 comps team, because there was just so much DP. After clearing the Kizreals, you're out of the woods. But as Black Bart Pirate, who you'll see later on today, pointed out in comms in between that match, a lot of DPS still on this grid, even after their 2 primary ships dropped out. That's what going with only a single Frigg Logi will get you. But let's go ahead. We're going to move on right away to the next match. This is our 4th match of the day. We have 7 guys, 1 sheet versus our sweet, sweet boy Radikos and Ramrod Redux. 7 guys, 1 sheet, banning the Loki, the Oneros, the Leshak, and the Curse. Ramrod Redux banning the Carries, Blackbird, Leshak, and the Nighthawk. I think our first Nighthawk ban so far. Let's talk, Murray. Let's talk about this first set of bans. The Oneros, the Leshak seem to point one way. The Loki and the Curse might point another. What are you seeing here for this team from 7 guys, 1 sheet?
It is a pretty flexible set of bans, right? It's really targeting like single key ships from various things. The Curse, the Leshak, I think, are things you may not necessarily see together, but are like key components of certain compositions. And then the Loki, again, is kind of a ship where you get rid of it, there isn't a good replacement. There is no ship that has a long web and a lot of tank and a lot of damage stacked into one boat.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. Wingnut, let's talk very briefly about this Nighthawk ban from Ramrod Redux. The Nighthawk not getting an extensive amount of use in the tournament so far. It has been used, often it has been used in the past, especially in rush comps. We've seen a couple groups do that. I've seen some people use it in a kite comp as well, some of these missile kite comps with heavy missiles. Does the Nighthawk and the Blackbird in this set make it look to you like they are trying to avoid some kind of rush, maybe some kind of ECM rush? What are you thinking here?
Nighthawk was the last ban, right? It was the last one they did.
It was their, yes, it was their.
That was just them throwing something at the wall. Like,
honestly,
yeah, that one.
You may be right. You may be right. Let's talk then about the Leshak. Yeah, let's talk about the Leshak then. The Leshak, obviously very powerful. We've seen it used already today to great effectiveness. Is the Leshak worth a ban when there are other ships like the Redeemer, like the Paladin, that have kind of fitted into that slot before and been pretty effective?
I mean, there are comps that don't like versing it, right? We saw that Rush comp was not a particularly big fan of shooting over Leshak. So they're kind of like a one-man band ship. If put in the right situation, that Leshak could probably just win a match on its own. So it's like, yeah, let's not deal with that one. We'll deal with other ships, but that one can stay home.
Well, and the Leshak too, so much utility in their highs with only having a single turreted gun. You have the opportunity to have newts in the tops. You have the opportunity for smart bombs if you need a smart bomb for whatever reason. Plus a bevy of mid slots and a decent tank to boot. Plus, now I do want to talk very briefly, Wingnut, about this Leshak. We did see the Leshak get a nerf recently that caused its starting damage to drop, but the spool amount increase over time, so you get up to the same damage. Does that lower DPS number factor in at all for these teams, especially in this shortened format?
I don't think so too much, unless you're versing ECM, at which point, good luck, mate. You're going to have a real bad time. It basically just emphasizes their strengths and maximizes their weaknesses too. Both sides get kind of pluses and minuses there. I think it comes out about even.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And boy, howdy, you want to talk about a set of fascinating fleet concepts. Ramrod is correct, folks. We have an exciting match coming up here for sure. We have Ramrod Redux, 7 guys, 1 sheet. We have Dujek and Chad in the arena for one more set in this first block of matches. We're going to go down to the arena. We'll be back at the desk here in just a few minutes, and we'll see you then.
Welcome to the arena here with Chad Flame and Dujek One Eye. We're here to bring you the Ramrod versus 7 Guys match, and we're seeing very similar but different comps at the exact same time. Dujek, would you run us through what 7 Guys has brought?
We have one team here. Their tickers are awful. Get tickers that match your teams, please. We have a kiting comp with a Barghest and 3 Orthruses. They have brought Logi, whereas the Rush comp have no Logi and just have to absolutely send it against the long-range opposition. There is no E-War to speak of on either team. This is going to be bloody.
Yeah, shield versus shield, and you're seeing the no Logi from Ramrod versus the 2 Scalpels. Usually you want to have a logistic ships. We've seen the Logi really make or break some matches here, but that is a lot of incoming DPS from that Ramrod team, and they are very fast and will get on anything they desire. So we will see what their opening target will be, and we will see what 7 Guys does to try to stay away from this rush.
I do favor 7 Guys in this case. They are going to... Oh, wow. There's damage going onto this Orthrus already. It seems like there's some more long-range damage coming out than I expected. The Jackdaws were doing some damage to the Orthrus, but a Jackdaw's already gone down, and then Nutramonix in the Cinnabol is also taking a lot of damage right off the bat and is burning in the opposite direction to get away from this.
Yeah, it looks like those light missile Jackdaws and the range that these Kizreals get, they do get a range bonus, and autocannons with the range bonus do fare very well to get some fall-off damage. But that they're shredding DPS right off of this Ramrod team so quickly, and they're just plinking away at shields and not really getting anything down. But this Orthrus might actually go down and is starting to take chunks into armor.
Grunt Kato is taking matters into his own hands and burning in as the way most tanky ship on his team. He has actually gone to tackle Dantesi's Kizreal, who is going to be the next person. Sail is trying his very best to survive here and seems to have stopped the damage on him temporarily, while Dantesi and Poonshroom are taking heavy damage simultaneously. Dantesi being almost killed.
I really like that play by Grunt Kato there, burning in, using the scrams, using the newts to really shut down this rush. Screening with the biggest ship on grid. Usually you try to screen for your Logi or your battleships. He's taking the initiative, going in there and doing it himself. And he's not even getting shot, and he's in the thick of it. The Orthrus going down in the low structure, but catching reps and coming back up as we're about to lose a Kizreal for the Ramrod team.
Sail is also taking heavy damage. They're just trying to throw anything at the wall to see what sticks from the Ramrod team here, and nothing is sticking. Dantesi is mere seconds from death, and Poonshroom will be the next target.
You know, this Logi doing really good works for the 7 Guys team. Ramrod not bringing a Logi, I mean, it's a questionable call. I think they had the DPS and the speed if they got on top of something, but the Kite seems to have been doing wonder. Grunt Kato doing screening. The Logi really doing a great job keeping up these Orthruses and really low structure HP, switching their reps at the correct time, and it seems like the rush from Ramrod is fizzled out.
Yeah, there just isn't enough tackle to catch ships that are the same speed as one, and they're just dying a little bit too fast as well. Like, they put all their eggs in one basket and they met the hammer that they didn't want to see on the other side.
Yeah, it's an interesting call by Ramrod. I do understand the concept of it. It just did not work out in this match as they couldn't really get on top of any targets. Orthruses are a very fast ship. And like you pointed out, the Barghest burning in a Kite comp, telling them, shoot me, I have the most tank. I have the most utility. I really am going to help my team win this match. And executed perfectly by 7 Guys. Ramrod falling a little bit short with their rush, and this is going to be a cleanup for 7 Guys.
It definitely is the kind of matchup that seems on paper like it would be closer, but they were starting 80 to 100 kilometers away from each other, and covering that distance feels like an eternity when the opponents get to do damage the entire time and you do not.
Yeah, you know, you got to cover that ground as well as the other ships moving around the same speed as you, maybe slightly slower. Kizreals are very fast. You're not going to gain ground quickly. and you got to cut the teams off and manual pilot your ships. And even with that, sometimes it's still a pain to get on top of a ship together as a unit. And adding that Barghest in there to the mix screening, it's a very uphill battle for Ramrod with the ranges that were warped in and trying to get on top of these faster ships.
Yeah, good fights are being called in local. Chris Pronger is moments from death, and it will be a clean sweep for 7 guys.
It seemed like in the beginning there was an opportunity for it to be closer with how much damage was being put into those Orthruses, but it ended up being, like you said, a clean sweep, and with that we will be sending it back to the Dusk.
Well, we had an interesting setup there as well with the Shield Kite versus a no Logi Fly Killer setup. Interesting. The Barghest triple Orthrus, very strong. Absolutely plenty of damage to smoke the triple Kizrael, dual Cenobalt, and dual Jackdaw. Murray and Wingnut with me still on the desk. Murray, let's talk about this Ramrod team and the lack of Logi. How does that affect a team like that and the way that they want to play this match?
You know, the team they're against is a team with a lot of really, really good pilots. And especially in this format, sometimes the best thing to do is try and cheese. And a Logilus armor Cinnable Kizrael comp that's looking to try and do something very weird very well is a way to try and catch teams by surprise. Now, unfortunately, they still left triple Orthrus up, which I think would give them a lot of trouble and definitely did. But it's the kind of idea and thought process that I think is very good, especially in this tournament format where your matches aren't just like one and done.
Right. Well, let's talk for a second. Wingnut, I'm so sorry about the cat situation. Wingnut, let's talk for a second about this 7 guys 1 sheet team with the Barghest, the triple Orthrus. This I feel like would be a hard setup for anybody to run into. It's a lot of DPS at a lot of range. Plus it has Logi. Plus it has a little bit of support in that Stork. Is this something that you expect we'll see more out of with how much range that comp offers?
Something along those lines for sure. That's something we're going to see quite a bit of. Damage at range, good tank, hard to catch, and can basically hit anything. So comps like that, we have battle cruiser versions with Navy cruisers, stuff like that. We're going to see a lot of, because they, with good piloting, they become amazing. With okay piloting, they do pretty well as well. However, that match they went against was weird. Those were all Artie. They went full Artie. Artie Cinnables.
Yeah, an odd choice.
I was watching going, I mean, amazing, thank you. That was beautiful to watch, but I've tried flying an Artie Cinnable. No, thank you. That's not fun.
No, it is not. You guys are gonna have to forgive me here for just a second. My feline companion, my sidekick here, has pulled out one of my monitor cables because she's a nightmare creature from hell sent to kill me. So I need to find which screen my timer is on so I know where we're at. There we go. Beautiful. Sorry. I'll fix this at the break. It's funny when you look at that kind of setup. The Fly Killer really excels when you're able to use it right at the gate to smoke that low end, and they weren't able to do that here. What caused it? Murray, let's talk for a second. Let's first, for people who are uninitiated, what is Fly Killer? What does it do? And what is it supposed to have done in that match that it was not able to do?
Yeah, so the core concept of Fly Killer is being able to kill small ships before reps land. It's usually a very classic counter to things like Armor Control, because Armor Control has a lot of tiny ships like the Sentinel and Command Destroyers that don't have a lot of EHP, and armor reps are more delayed than shield reps, so it's much easier to try and get that damage in instantly before the reps can land to save those ships.
Yeah.
Artillery, very good at this. It has high alpha, so it's got that high burst damage to pop those ships. Now, unfortunately, in this setup, they weren't really against what Fly Killer is typically designed to defeat, which makes it very difficult for them. But that's the general concept.
Sure. Well, it didn't work out this time, but it's cool to see those kind of matches. They have been. I want to be clear. It's not. I feel like a lot of people will look at something like that without a lot of context and say, "Oh, that's just a meme setup." Fly Killer is very dangerous, especially in the right hands. And we've seen it used to great effectiveness during the AT before, and certainly in smaller contest formats as well. But we are going to move right ahead. We have our next match between two teams, one we saw yesterday and one that we hinted at yesterday. We have the team managed by our very own The Basilisk, the Hidden Ship Village Idiot Contract Scam Esports team versus the Rusty Hyenas team.
How did they make it worse?
Well, you know, it's worse, but it's somehow more appropriate. Or at least it's thematically appropriate anyway. We're just gonna call them the Hidden Ship Village Idiot team, banning the Gila, the Scimitar, the Orthrus, and the Kizreal, while Rusty Hyenas banning the Balgorn, the Loki, the Orthrus, the Redeemer. Let's start with you, Wingnut. Obviously, banning the Kiz, a lot of options or getting rid of a lot of those kite options. Same with the Orthrus. Anything else here that sticks out to you with this Hidden Ship ban set?
That Deemer ban? You said it was a Deemer. I'm not hearing
Sorry,
things.
that was
crazy.
for Hidden Ship. It was Gila, Scimitar, Orthrus,
Right.
Kizreal.
Yeah, right. That's just saying screw you. I don't want to see you kiting anywhere. Scimitar,
Yeah.
I think, is the main one telling you no there. But we might see double frigate Logi instead, or even single frigate. But they're pretty much just saying we don't want to see you running away. Stand and fight like a man. But that also could be a double bluff.
It could be. Well, and it's interesting. Obviously remove Scimitar does kind of allude to that, or does kind of point in that direction. But we've seen other kind of missile rushes before. We've seen people using the Nighthawk, not rush, sorry, the Nighthawk kite with heavy missiles. We've seen people doing the same thing with like cyclones or CFIs, rather. So it'll be interesting to see how they adapt that. Let's see, Murray. This Balgorn pick, I say this every time the Balgorn comes up. Redeemer, I understand. Orthrus, obviously, I understand. Loki, same thing. We've talked about this a lot. The Balgorn seems like such an odd choice. What do you think is going through the minds of this Rusty Hyena team? They really don't want to see that Balgorn.
So traditionally, it's because you don't want to deal with the control the Balgorn provides, right? It's got the incredibly scary newts and nosses and long webs that can be a big problem in control. Now, unfortunately for them, not only has the Balgorn not been getting banned this tournament, it's been up and nobody's taking it. Which, one team not doing it, a few teams not doing it, maybe it's just them. Nobody doing it probably means it's not good, because somebody's tried to use the Balgorn somewhere in scrims, and the reason they're not using it now is because it wasn't working.
You are right. Yeah. Well,
The answer is always, why not just bring a Geddon? Like,
Yeah.
why am I bringing a Balgorn every single time? Why am I spending money on me?
the Balgorn newts obviously are potent. There's no lie to that. But no lie to that. There's no lie there. However, you do have to wonder whether or not the teams shouldn't just, if you're going to ban one, you got to ban the other. The Armageddon has so much utility in a set like this where you're limited by space. The Armageddon can basically, even without any kind of fancy newts, can still hit almost the entire grid from anywhere else on the grid with those long range newts. It really puts it in a tough position. So banning the Balgorn, sure, okay. That just says to me as a captain, oh, they don't want to. Let me see. Hang on. I don't see it yet. Oh, there we
We're
are.
back.
Hey, it's me again. Hey, there we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Okay, so that was weird. But listen, these things happen, especially sometimes things just don't quite work the way that they used to.
The hamster's just getting some water, okay?
Hamsters are getting some water. Listen, union mandated breaks for all of our hamsters. That's what this is. Very simple. But the stream is back up. Tell all your friends. Make sure everybody's here. In fact, I'll reward those of you who have stuck around with more of my cat as we get ready to go over to the arena. Hello, cat.
We have
Here.
fully transitioned to catch stream, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yes. You wanted to see the cat? Well, here's the cat. Look at it. Look how beautiful she is. Oh, my baby.
Look into its soul.
Yeah, she's. Oh God, cat.
She is
please.
very adorable.
Please, yeah, she's so cute. Anyway, well, listen, we are not going to wait any longer. We're going to go straight down now to the arena. We have Thoronth, Starfleet Commander, Hidden Ship Village, Idiot Contract Scam Esports, and Rusty Hyenas right now. We'll be back with you in just a few minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Thoronth, and I've got Starfleet Commander with me here. Hi, Starfleet. How are you doing?
I'm good. Ready for the first match for me today. It's going to be fantastic. What have we got on grid right now?
Well, totally not Jutsu team. They've brought a control setup that is apparently aiming to go around the Redeemer ban, which is Megapulse Armageddons, backed up with some Tech 1 Logis.
And Hyenas have got Typhoons. What's that about, Thoronth?
Well,
They
it's
got
all
Rapid
about...
Lights.
No, not Rapid Lights. This
No,
is not...
Rapid.
Don't summon
Rapid
VLD.
Heavy.
Don't summon VLD. It's all Rapid Heavy here. So, yeah, I think that what Rusty Hyenas are aiming to do is, well, right now they are pulling the support a little bit back. And while the Typhoons and the Armageddon, they charge in, they will just try to nuke whatever is the softest target that they can apply to. And it looks like it's going to be the Basilisk and Ashimu.
It's a pretty nasty team, though, to go up against the armor comp of the Armageddon Navy issues. I think it's really difficult to get in there. They have to go for the Ashimu, really, don't they, to try and break something. Or the Celestis, but I don't think they can get back there.
Yeah, I don't think Celestis is like a lot of impact in this particular match because the Rusty Hyena teams, they are not aiming to kite here. They are going in as well. They probably don't want to be exactly on point range blank of those guys because they don't need to, but going through Basilisk should be just a matter of time. As you see, all those heavy drones are catching up to him finally. The Federation Navy Augurs are here to deploy some controlled democracy. So I think that after Basilisk
He has to get down. They have to get him down now.
He's going to get down unless, my dear friend, the reload has hit.
That's the thing. If they don't kill him before the reload, well, he's going to structure, but we'll see.
I still see some missiles coming, so...
As I say that, I think he might go down. He's down! Oh my god. So this is actually a big win for the Hyena team. But as you said, the Typhoon is taking some damage. They have to go in close to get that damage on, which means the damage is going to come back on them. Will they tank?
The thing with Nasset, though, is like, unless he's hard tackled by anything, and let me quickly check. No, I don't see any effects on him.
He seems okay right now. He's grappled.
Now I see a grappler. Yeah, now I see a grapple.
So he is definitely locked down. I reckon they could definitely focus on him and get through him immediately, which is going to happen. So he needs to reload quickly. I'm guessing they have to go for.
He's still going 1K, so he has to burn away right now, my dude. And if he gets out of the range of those Armageddon, he can buy himself quite a lot of time.
He is going. Look at it. He's trying to get away, but he's in structure. But the Navitas aren't. Oh, they're going with him now. They're trying to catch up with him. They need to literally go with him. He needs to get out of the range, get out of the grapple. And if he survives, this is huge for Hyena, isn't it?
Yeah, in the meantime, totally not a Jutsu team is losing their Magus, so that's going to be links down. And after that, those Navy Geddons are going to be much easier not to crack. Well, turns out...
He's holding on! He's just holding... He's out! He's out! Oh, God!
Yeah, the drones have been recalled, so they are going back to the mothership. Virion is going to be soon deprived of both of his Inquisitor's bodies here to keep up the both battleships there. One thing that's worth noting is that the Hyena team, they still had the Armageddon Navy and Typhoon on top of the not Jutsu team, muting them those Logi frigates. So I'm surprised it's actually taking them so long to crack them now because John Valle is somehow holding.
Yeah, I'm not really too sure what's going on there. He's not webbed. He's just TP'd John in the Inquisitor. The Armageddon Navy issue of the Hyena team, he should be getting a bit more closer, I think, don't you? He should be getting on top of something and just literally locking it down. As the damage does switch over to KOR in the Hyena team because he's the closest one. But again, now he's starting to move back. The right thing to do, to get some range and just use their range to try and abuse. But they do have to try and kill Logifrig here, don't they?
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a tough challenge because all the drones they seem to have brought are augurs and berserkers, and those are not very good at catching inquisitors. Those inquisitors, they go suspiciously fast to me, like breaking 1.2k. So maybe 10 MN, it doesn't help with the missile application either, especially if you don't have a lot of TPs there. So that malediction there, if he's not going to hard tackle one of them, even if he's scramming, which it looks like he is, one web is not necessarily enough. keep him slowed down enough to apply fully.
Now the Malediction's not scramming. The Malediction is scramming the Inquisitor right now.
He does have a web on him too, so obviously it's not working. But
Celestis
as
down.
yeah, I was going to say that we're tunnel vision on those Inquisitors, but Celestis quietly died in the background there.
Probably a couple of volleys just cheekily sent over. That's enough to finish him off. But the thing is the Typhoon is kind of holding, but he's completely locked down as the Inquisitor is in structure. If he goes down, this is huge. They can definitely kill STA now, and with this, we might see the end of Jitsu in this match.
Yeah, they probably will kill Crom in here because he's been grappled by both of the Armageddons, right, and probably doesn't have cap to move away anyways. But it's whatever. There is still a whole perfectly good Armageddon Navy on the Rusty Hyena side. And there is Nessat still that managed to survive in, let me see, 11% structures. Chat. That's 11% over there.
That's MVP right there. He actually was clutch, wasn't he, at the beginning? Just getting out of range and wasting damage as well all that time and getting his reload off. But I kind of forgot that they have an Armageddon Navy issue. The Typhoon, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of sneakily there, but he's taking a lot of damage. He's going to half armor. So I'm not really. I mean, he definitely won't break though. I mean, he can't.
We'll see because in the straight up DPS race, totally not Jutsu team, they have a slight advantage to medium advantage, considering that Mega Pulses, they don't care about reload, they can just keep cycling and cycling for as long as you have capacitor. And they pump some serious damage, so we'll see who goes down first. Is it going to be Virion or Antoha over here? Both Armageddon's Navy. Virion is going into structure.
No, he's definitely. I mean, I'm going to say it. It's definitely high, and they're going to take this. I mean, once Virion goes down, all the DPS will drop off, and they'll tank. But do you think, as this match looks to be cleaning up here, do you think the not Jitsu team had a chance here?
I think they did if they had managed to tackle down and tie down those Typhoons much easier, because Nessat was in a position where he was able to just burn away when he felt that he's vulnerable. And by the way, this is a very important skill to have, and it's a very nice play because it's very easy to get tunnel vision, right? To just stay in the optimal damage range or something. But when you are the primary, and your weapon system does not care about range, burning away is pretty nice. So maybe if that Magus was able to hard tackle him, if he had some kind of a scram, I don't know about that. Maybe then it would have been easier, because look at those ANIs. They are taking some time. They are taking a beating here, but well, the match is over actually now. Totally not Jutsu team has lost, and Rusty Hyenas take the win.
Welcome back, folks. It's me, CCP Jotun here, with our newest desk set. We have, of course, my beloved CCP Overload, and in his dark void, Black Bart Pirate. Gentlemen, welcome to the desk. Hidden Ship Village Idiot Contract Scam Esports taking the L against Rusty Hyenas. Let's start. Black Bart Pirate. I'm just going to call you BBP because I love it and love the way it sounds. BBP, I've heard it said before that losing your entire back end to trade for a single Typhoon is not a winning strategy. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, obviously it's not a winning strategy because they lost. I don't necessarily know if losing the back end mattered in that situation. Just reading over all of our super exciting notes, that was me basically shit talking the Hidden Village idiots over and over again. I think that it was really, if you're going to be doing these heavy battleship teams, you need to actually use your battleships. And seeing battleships kiting away when, as people have been saying it for years and years and years, you need to just ram in and fight. What do you expect? You're running away. Stop running. Just go fight people.
I do not disagree with you one bit. CCP Overload, let's talk, because I believe this was the first triple battleship set we've seen have any success with the two Typhoons and the Navy Geddon. Is this what BBP was just saying? Is this a run and gun with those battleships? What is the strategy that they approached with, and why was it so successful?
I I mean, triple battleship is always going to be a little bit of a touch and go situation, simply because the amount of points you have to invest in that top end, you kind of lack the ability to use much other control. I mean, you can see here they brought, other than the 3 battleships, just a Magus, Malediction, and 2 Navitas. That's not a huge amount of control. So all your control lasts or resides within your battleships. So they just have to brawl on in and try and get on something. But that's difficult when the other team needs to do the same thing. And 2 Navy battleships versus 1 Navy battleship and 2 Typhoons, it can kind of go either way. I do agree with what Bart said, that the Village Idiots should have just kind of brawled in on top of one of those Typhoons. Like, those things go down quicker. Even though there's 2 to 3 battleships, you do more damage, you have more nukes, you have more control. Like, that's just got to be how you play that.
I do not disagree with you. I'm not actually sure what time we are looking at right now because our timer was thrown off a little bit by our stream dropping. But we are going to go ahead and move on to the next set of bands, which I believe we have up right now. Yes, we have Arrival, the team from Arrival, rather, versus, only need 3 comps, as opposed to only need 2 comps. Arrival team banning the Curse, Pilgrim, Arbitrator, and the only need 3 comps team banning the Hyena, Loki, Orthrus. BBP, the Curse, Pilgrim, Arbitrator. This is a trend. What are they trying to avoid here?
Well, I mean, they're trying to they're trying to avoid getting guidance disrupted or tracking disrupted. Also, I mean, newts are kind of important, but in this specific case, like, you got rid of probably some of the most oppressive E-War ships in the game, especially in a format like this where, there's only 7 enemy players, so you don't really have to worry about there being too many targets. Like, a single Curse can maybe get rid of their entire DPS line.
Yeah, it's funny too, because especially when you compare that to the bands for the next team, which we'll get to in just one moment. Whenever you see these sort of bands, the Curse, the Pilgrim, the Arbitrator, when it's sort of a stacked approach to these bands, it definitely seems to imply that there's at least one thing that they've seen or one thing they're trying to avoid that they definitely do not want to see on that grid whatsoever. That may be even more prevalent with these bands from only need 3 comps. CCP Overload, the Hyena, Loki, and Orthrus. Pretty clear what they're trying to avoid here, right?
Yeah, I mean, 2 of those ships are long-range webby boys. The Hyena and the Loki both getting bonuses to that. And of course, the Loki is kind of a linchpin of some classic heavy missile rush comps as well. Reach out, web down the people that you dislike strongly, and then rush on in with the rest of you boys and smack on them. And then, of course, the Orthrus. We've seen the Orthrus be used really effectively so far in this tournament, usually in the triple Orthrus form, sometimes dual Orthrus. It has long-range scram, and it has a ton of DPS when it wants to. So those are very, very powerful kiting comp ships. So they're trying to ban those out because they do not wish to be kited. Or if they do, they wish to be kited ineffectively.
Well, we are going to go ahead and throw now over to the arena. Our teams are ready. We have Arrival and only need 3 comps. We have Thoronth and the SFC at the arena right now. We'll see you back here in just a couple of minutes.
Welcome back to the arena. Starfleet Commander here with Thoronth Valax. And boy, don't we have a good match here, Thoronth, in front of us. 2
Hi,
great
Hansi.
teams.
Hi, babes. I love you, babes.
Well, I'm going to read out what Arrival have got. Arrival have got 2 Paladins, 2 Bellicose, a Griffin, a Pontifex, and an Execra. What do only 3 comps have, Thoronth?
Those are some very exotic comps on both sides, but the masses have decided to bring an Abaddon, a Drekavac, and a Vedmak, despite what BVP says about the Drekavac, backed by an Ogre, an Omen. I think that they have a real chance at taking this, even though there are spooky Paladins on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, the Bellicoses, I am a bit spooked out by the Paladin as the match does start, as the damage will land, I think, pretty quickly as we see the Griffin straight into half shields and damage on the Vedmak. Do you think the Griffin's a good shout? I mean, we all hate ECM, don't we?
I mean, I love ECM. I don't know what you're talking about, but in this particular match, I think the Griffin is fairly safe because the only thing that can threaten is Omen and the Abaddon. So if he plays safe, then he can go. He can probably live for a long time. However, he's looks to be AB and he's actually in WD. I'm sorry. So he's just despite being primed, he's keeping alive now, and the Omen, in the meantime, is already have armor.
He took a lot of damage there. He got a little grapple. I don't know if it was a very cheeky, very small grapple, and that's where he took the damage. But I think he'll probably stable out now, won't he? What do you think about the 2 T1 Logi picks, just to get those more points? Definitely worth it, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a fan of Augury myself. Many a times in an Alliance tournament or AG match, I've been asking Audenopro or Rilo to give me the secret sauce. But the Executor on the other side is, well, it puts up a little bit less rep, but it is another type of an ECM, so it might be irrelevant there if they were expecting to see ECM on the other side. The Augury on the Damash side is down though, so he won't be giving no sauce to anybody anytime soon. They are probably going to trade it for a Griffin right there. So now we have one Logi team versus a team with no Logi.
I was going to say, damage was landing across both the teams. The Omen's nearly in half armor. The Vedmak's now taking damage. That was a really good call from Arrival to go for the Augury. I think that was a fantastic, just to get him down. But the Executor, they have to kill the Executor now, I think. Only 3 comps, because otherwise they're at a huge disadvantage in this match.
Sure thing, but at the same time, Debug is already going down, and he's going to bite the dust soon. And then they have to chew through 2 Paladins and 2. Well, I'm not going to count Bellicoses really as something to chew through, because you can probably sneeze at them. But if you have a look at the position of where the Augury died, it looked like the Paladins, they just kept on slowly burying on him, and like just scorched him down when they got him out of position, because that's one of the strengths of those. Well, I said it many times that Scorch L is the best ammo in the game, pretty much. So they can just reach like this and just snipe a Logi, especially if it's Tech 1 and it doesn't have too much EHP left. But what about the masses here?
He's trying to kite away right now. As the Pontifex dies, they really need to get this Hansi Babes needs to die. They have to get him down, but I just don't think they're going to have the damage to get through him. As the Omen goes into low armor, Damzus is in nearly structure, but he's kiting away, trying to mitigate some damage. There isn't a Abaddon, obviously, but he'll be the last one to die. As the Paladin does go into low armor, Feronf.
Damage-wise, it should be, depending on how that Abaddon is fit, he can dish up to 1.5. KDPS.
This is close.
So, yeah, and Drekavac right now, he's pretty much safe over there. He has a cloud of rep drones that are being just over there, keeping him up slowly, right? Well, as I say that it was actually, never mind, those are the Arrival drones. I'm just a dumbass. But nevertheless, he's boating away towards the tournament beacon. He's not dealing any damage, but he's also safe, so he's preserving points.
I think Damasus has to come back in. I think he has to come back in and just kind of sacrifice himself to get damage on the Paladin to win this DPS race. If he switches damage to Damasus and he dies and the Abaddon gets the edge, I think that's worth it.
It is the point. The Abaddon, it seems to be doing the job perfectly well on his own, though. So again, you can see big chunks being wrapped up by ancillary reps here on this Paladin, but once he's out of paste or out of heat, he's gonna go down. So you can already see that the chunk was much smaller. So as
the masses does come in, yeah.
But the masses was not shooting him anyway. So it's just all the Chad Abaddon, despite all the hate that some people on the desk are giving Abaddons. This is an absolute Chad of a ship. And now it's just a matter of cleaning up the Bellicoses.
I mean, what a match. It definitely went one way and the other. I mean, good call to get Logi down. They had to immediately go for the T1 Logi once. They had to kill the Executor down, only 3 comps. Otherwise, they were just not going to win. That's the same in every match that we've played, isn't it, Fran? If you lose your Logi, you kind of have to go for their Logi to a certain degree. Otherwise, you're just not gonna hold it, right?
Yeah, 8 out of 10. I would cases, I would say that's the thing here, and I don't know if everybody would have agreed, because with the final outcome, because 2 Paladins they land on the grid, it's a little bit spooky, right? But here, Melinda and the Master Scatters, they just powered through the rest of the team and they snatch a victory.
And as we see that, good fights in local, and with that, we'll take back to the studio.
Gentlemen, I am perplexed. That I don't understand. Okay, walk me through this. BBP, you're a team. Both teams have no Logi. One team has dual Paladin Pontifex, Dual Bellicose Griffin. The other team has Abaddon, Drekavac, then a handful of a smattering of other stuff, and the Paladin team loses. Why and how?
I mean, why is because they lost ships before the other team did.
Okay, that's
like
good.
Their points went lower. And when your points go down, then you lose. How? We've kind of seen it actually a couple times today. What seems to be happening is a lot of teams are sort of making these like snap target calling decisions that maybe aren't necessarily correct. And I think that like what happened there's a moment when the Abaddon got into conflag range, and a conflag DPSing Abaddon is probably like one of the highest, if not the highest, DPS ships in the game. And at that moment, the Paladins needed to switch to the Abaddon and take it down, and then they win. Because at that point, the Abaddon's really the only threat left on grid. What they did instead is they tried to kill the low end first, which worked pretty well up until the point of Demacius kiting out and getting away from them. So, like, you know, it was really good piloting on Demacius's part. Paladins also targeted the wrong thing, and they did a really good job early on, where like they forced the auger in and they sniped it. Great, you know, they sniped another ship. Great. By this point, you know, the Abaddon slowly boated into range of them. You have to swap over and kill the Abaddon, because while Abaddons are really tanky, they're actually not as tanky as you would think. Like, they have a ton of resist bonuses, but people really like to kind of take advantage of that and fit like 3 heat sinks on it, which is probably why we saw, I mean, I think we saw a Paladin get hit by a wrecking shot and lose like 70% of its armor in maybe a second or two. So,
well, and there's something we said too, you know, the tournament does limit you to only a single plate, I believe. So you're not going to have those dual plated setups that you've seen in a lot of other contests that make Paladins, make Abaddons so oppressive. And you're right, that Abaddon, especially once it gets in the conflict, does a ton of damage. The Abaddon, not known for not being a damage dealer, though it does have issues with capacitor. CCP overload, let's talk for a second about these Paladins for a second, because one of the comments that I saw during the break was how wild it was. These Paladins seem to burn down so quickly. Now, granted, the team from Only Need 3 comps did have quite a bit of DPS. The Abaddon, the Drekavac once it spooled, the Vedmak once it was spooled, throw in a couple of other things in there for flavor. But the Paladins absolutely, especially that first Paladin from Handsy Babies, just seemed to sink so quickly. Is this maybe a fitting issue, or is there a piloting thing going on here? What do you think?
I mean, it depends how you fit them. Paladins are pretty substantial. They do a lot of damage. They're very good at projection, most importantly. They can hit things across the entire arena. But if you're new to tournaments, you cannot fit the Bastion modules, of course. Normally, if you're in your Yieldy Paladin doing sites, then you are probably in Bastion, so you get a huge boost to your local repair mount. These Paladins do not get that. These 2 Paladins are essentially the only DPS for this team. Like, sure, there's 2 Bellicose as well, but like,
sure,
they don't really count. Okay. So if you go too tanky, then you're just not going to be able to break anything on the other side. Like, you have to trade at some point DPS for tank and vice versa. And finding that line is really important. And we saw towards the end that the Abaddon, as Bart mentioned, usually very tanky, it was still going down at a fair old clip while the Paladin was still up. So, you know, they made the same decision. Like, the ideal amount of HP for each one of these ships is 1 more than the damage that they took. Anything else is wasted.
No disagreement. And that does seem to be how that works out. Let's go ahead and move on to our next match. We have the team in red, Exodunks, versus the team in blue, New Jovian Mining Department. Exodunks banning the Gila, the Geddon, and the Orthrus. The New Jovian Mining Department banning the Carrie's Curse Scimitar. A lot of bans we've seen before. Black Bart, what are you seeing from this team from Exodunks?
Well, it's just that's pretty standard. I'm not sure how well Armageddon, you know, non-Navy issues have been performing in this. I was working all day yesterday, so I didn't really get a chance to watch too many matches. But I do know that multiple people from multiple teams that I've talked to have said that the Gilas are like not necessarily oppressively overpowered, but they're definitely something that if your comp can't beat a Gila comp, you're not bringing it. So it kind of makes me wonder. Especially in a format like this, they do so much damage and they're so hard to deal with that, you know, you ban the Gila, you ban the Geddon, that's a lot of control, and you ban the Orthrus. There's not going to be a lot of kiting here. This really, to me, seems like they want to bring some kind of projection-based setup. So, a lot of battle cruiser damage, which, from what I've seen, has been performing really, really well.
You're absolutely right. It has been. CCP Overload, the new Jovian mining department with the carries, Curse, and Scimitar. The Scimitar obviously limiting a lot of their kiting options. We saw that with the ban of the Orthus as well. But the carries and Curse, what are you thinking with those two bans?
I mean, those are two extremely powerful E-warships, both with strong bonuses. The carries is very useful for obviously long-range scrams, but also damps and things like that. And the Curse, usually you see that as a tracking and guidance disruption boat. That can be extremely powerful if someone is shooting at you, for example, and you wish them to not shoot at you. Then you may apply a Curse to them, and then suddenly they just start missing, whether it's with missiles or with disrupting their turrets. Because of how powerful that ship is, and it can be very tanky, it's a popular ban if you want to be at range.
Well, I believe you're right, and I appreciate you bringing up how the sort of arcane mystery behind the mechanics of EVE Online. It really is like magic out here. There's a bit of sorcery involved. Folks, before we go down to the arena, I don't think we have teams on the grid just yet. But a reminder that we do have a second stream going up right now. If you have not tuned in, that stream is up. I don't believe it has gone down yet. Give it time. Could happen. Who knows? That is twitch.tv/Eve Tournaments. That's twitch.tv/Eve Tournaments. They have drops. We have channel point betting. Open both of them. Watch them both. It'll be great. In fact, their commentators might not say Scimitar. You might find commentators over there that say Scimitar instead. Wouldn't that be something? You can pick your poison. So, with that being said, folks, we are now going to go down to the arena with Thoronth, Starfleet Commander, Exodunks, and the new Jovian Mining Department. We'll be back here at the desk in just a couple of minutes.
Hello and welcome back to the arena. It's again Thoronth and Starfleet, and the three of us are going to take you over the DroneCon versus what looks like another Kizzy Rush over here.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've got Exodunks, or Exodus team, and Jovian. Well, Exodus have got Eos, Hyena, Mordus, Ishtar, Arbitrator, and Neros. This kind of reminiscent of an old sort of. Don't really see as much, do we? And what have Jovian brought?
It's a good old gamer fuel pumped mini Rush over here, but this time they're, well, as is specifically in this tournament, they're using Kizrael instead of a good old Sleipnir or any other sanctioned ships. I don't think those arbitrators are going to be very useful, Starfleet. I also think that this comp on Exodus side does not have a lot of DPS.
Yeah, I was literally going to say that. I was just thinking, like, what does Exodus have that's going to stop this? They've got two broadswords, they've got two crews. They're going to charge right in. The two broadswords warped at 0, so they're immediately going to go straight in. Can they stop the rush?
I don't think so. This Hyena will have to do some juggling, but Kizraels are pretty fast, and the broadsword have a pretty long range scram. So here we go. The match is on, and unsurprisingly, we are going in with the Job Corps Rush over here. The Eos is actually burning in to meet them, and he's already being tackled over here. The Hyena is the first primary for Jugdos, but I expect that they're going to switch over to whatever is the main DPS target. But we've got already some screen being done here. Sabotage is being tackled by Broadsword of Mike Blackflag, but he's not a primary. They're trying to get around him right now and into that juicy backline of Exodus team.
Maulus takes a lot of damage. There's a giant swarm of mix of Fed Navy Hammerheads and some Berserkers chasing Blue Dagger right now. As the Maulus goes down, there's just some nice damps off the field, but I don't think that changes too much.
Absolutely not. Those damps are kind of useless when you have Jagdos who, surprise, surprise, in Sharpshooter mode, they are kind of immune to both dampening effects or guidance disruption. So Arbitrator is not probably getting max of the back for the points there either, as Jay is going pretty down to the armor.
Oh, this is not looking good. I'm already seeing the issue of drones that we've seen many times. The drones get disconnect, they go back, and they have to recall them again. So what do you see there? Some Fed Navy Hammerheads obviously went onto a Jackdaw, and now they're trying to go back on the Blue Dagger, but they're just chasing around Blue Dagger. I just don't think they're going to be able to kill him. To be honest, if in the time as the Hyena is struggling to survive, he's being shot and he's got some bots in him. As the
Onero's
Onero's
boundary. There you go. I was going to say it was 122, and I'm like, And
I mean,
and with that, Wasa is just dead, and it's going to be a pretty easy snowball from here.
I mean, the dangers of kiting are ever prevalent in this arena. It creeps up on you. I can tell you now, as I've played in this tournament, for these tournaments for EVE Online for 10 years, it does happen. And before you know it, don't you, Fermp, you're 123 kilometers away, and, then it's too late.
I only boundaried once. I only boundaried once in an actual match, and it was already over. So I don't know what you're talking about, man.
I mean, but I do believe that Excellence were definitely up against all in this fight. It's such a difficult comp to come up against with this drone, with the damage that's also not instant as well. It's very easy to see who's primary, make a decision quite early on. Blue Dagger knew who was going to be the primary. The drones are coming over to him. He can start burning away. Obviously, can't really use sentries. I'd say, obviously, drones is the way to go.
Technically, you can, but they only take one. And, well, they do get an Osprey. I don't know how well. The Osprey, there was a skill issue involved, I'll put it that way, because I was going to say that with combat drones, one easy trick that every droner enjoyer will hate you for is when you go to that MJD beacon, you see the swarm, you press the button, and you've wasted like a minute of their time burning over there. They have to switch target then, and you can just threaten, right?
That is a
the MJD.
Classic trick, though. I mean, I do think that they're just up against the wall, Exodus, in this comp. Like, I'm just trying to think of ways. Like you said, the Hyena will have to juggle webbing as Give Fights go up in local. Obviously, unfortunately, I mean, they were still in the running if the Neros didn't boundary. I would say that. Wouldn't you say the same thing?
I mean, it's what if, could have, would have, right? But if the Osprey would have stayed alive, it would be extremely difficult to kill anything, right? They can just run down something or run down the Oneros, tackle it down, and just shoot him, and he's going to be dead. In a pinch, they can just select the heavy drones from and start defanging maybe. So it's difficult to say, but I don't really like the drone setups in made like this, that you have only, how much DPS do you have? Do you even break 2k DPS with that kind of a setup where you only have like an EOS and an Ishtar and 2 arbitrators that have like a flight of mediums? Not really.
1800, I'd say. But the one thing I was just thinking as well, this whole comp relies on the Hyena, the Ishtar comp, the drone comp. Like, he has to, if he dies, basically with the application kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, he's the linchpin, and actually, is it right that I see that the Hyena was banned and they brought it anyways? No. No, this is the previous match, I'm sorry. Yeah, but the Hela was closed, so they didn't have to worry about it. But I don't know what they kill if there is a technology on the grid. And with that, Exodus, they bow out, and we are going to go back to the studio with Jovko taking this match. Yeah.
Well, it had to happen eventually. We did have our first boundary of the match, though according to one Black Bart Pirate, it might not have mattered. BBP seeing a sort of a drone all-in versus a gun rush. Exodus seems to have gotten baited a little bit here. What do you think?
Well, I said it right beforehand. Like, I looked at their bans and I was like, oh yeah, they're probably, they're looking to do some projection stuff. And I think that their whole plan was, I think Exodus kind of big brained themselves. They banned out stuff that says bring a projection gun setup versus us. Like, bring some long range battle cruisers and cruisers. Then Exodus brings drones with a ton of tracking disruptors and damps, and they would have won. Like, they would have done a great job versus the comp that Exodus wanted to fight against, like, surprisingly enough. But they forgot that the other team could just be like, well, what if we just bring Minmatar Rush and just run at you? And that's what they did, and Exodus died. And like, I know that the Logi boundaried, like, I don't think it mattered, honestly. Like, it was already kind of over at that point. I believe either Starfleet or Theronth said that the Exodus comp only had 1800 DPS. That's really not enough to do anything if the other team is just running you down with 3,000-4,000 DPS of autocannons.
CCP overload. Do you think? And I'm looking back at the bans from Exodus from last time. They banned the Geddon, they banned the Gila, they banned the. Our immediate response was like, oh, they're going to try and avoid some kind of a kite setup, which is not quite what they did. But banning the Gila does make it seem like they're trying to avoid some kind of drone setup. But then they brought drones of their own. Is that a play? Is that some kind of? Oh, I see you're having some feline issues as well. I respect that. That's a beautiful cat. Is that a play to try and give them a little bit of the old razzle dazzle, a little bit of the smoke and mirrors to make him think, oh, we're trying to avoid this thing. Oh, but look here, we found this other thing we have at home.
Yeah, so that's the classic mistake that you see sometimes where, like, if you have practice partners that you kind of ask them to do what you want them to do, and you think, oh, we do this, then they do that, and we do this, and then they do that, and then suddenly someone else comes along and they have a completely different set of like planning, and they just do something completely different, and then you're like, oh, crap,
Yeah.
we did not account for this. And this is essentially what happened here. They got comp baited, whether or not intentionally, whether or not they comp baited themselves, that can be left up to the viewer's interpretation. But I agree with Bart. I don't think there's very few win conditions for that comp in that setup there.
I don't disagree. I want to talk too about these broadswords. I know that this is the casual observer might not clue into BBP. These broadswords, people will say, why are you bringing a hick to a tournament fight? They don't do that much DPS. They don't have, they obviously there's no point in using their bubble. What is the benefit of having those dual broadswords on a grid like this, especially when you're in a gun rush comp like the one that we're in?
Well, so most hicks don't do that much DPS. Broadswords actually can hit a pretty decent amount. Like you can hit like several hundred. Depending on your fit, you can hit like easy 500, 600, 700 DPS. You can overload up to probably close to 1,000, and they're actually really fast. Again, just the broadsword is really fast. And then they also have a very long-range scram. And it turns out if you combine all those things, you have a very good tournament ship, at least in this very specific setup here. And, the trick to not dying to a rush is to run away from it. It's a lot harder to run away from it if one of their tackle ships is pretty tanky, pretty fast, and can scram you from long range. Like not even web. Like once the scram gets on, your MWD's off, and you start slowing down very, very quickly. So right. It's pretty strong. I really, really like Minotaur Rush over Ham Rushes, and part of the reason is specifically because of the broadsword. And we kind of saw exactly what happened there. Again, the broadsword pilots fought really well. They went around the EOS, they grabbed the back line, and that was it.
Do you think this is the same kind of comp? And I know you're a little bit of an Eve boomer. You may not have been super active since these were introduced. The Kizrael feels like one of those ships that has been slotted into where you might see a Sleipnir in a different comp. Does that feel accurate to you? Oh
yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously a Sleipnir is better, but just because of the way the points are in this specific setup, I am an Eve boomer, but I'm not a tournament boomer yet. Crossing my fingers, we'll see what happens next time.
That's true.
And it's basically a Sleipnir that isn't as good as a Sleipnir. There's certain parts of it that are a little bit better, but just because of the way the points are set up in this, it is very, very difficult to bring like a triple Sleipnir rush in this specific tournament format. Whereas the Kizrael basically is a Sleipnir. It's got a little bit longer range, still fast, still does a ton of damage, just not quite as good at surviving.
Gotcha. Well, let's go ahead and move on. We have one more match before our break this afternoon. This match is between the Burned My Prop Sorry team in red and the Woke Waterboo Hooligans in blue. The Burned My Prop Sorry team banning the Curse, the Scimitar, the Orthrus, and the Armageddon, while the Woke Waterboo Hooligans team banning the Curse, the Carries, the Cyclone Fleet Issue, and the Kizrael. CCP Overload, a pretty standard set of bans. A lot of actually, let me check that. Is that Armageddon Navy or is it just It is an Armageddon Navy. Sorry, I had to scroll a bit further. So Armageddon Navy, Orthrus, Scimitar, Curse, CCP Overload. What are you seeing here?
Again, nothing too spectacular here in terms of the banning. Curse, both teams in fact banning Curse. Both teams recognizing it is a horrible ship to fly against, and pretty much if you're not going to bring it, they really want to ban it. Scimitar really rules out a lot of traditional like fly killer-esque kiting comps. There are other logistics ships available. They are not as good. Orthrus, it's probably becoming one of the best ships in this tournament. I have to say, we see it flown a lot, and it is very successful a lot of the times. And the Geddon Navy, it's just a powerful little donkey boy.
It is a powerful little donkey boy. You're absolutely right, and you're also right that the Orthrus might be the most banned so far in this tournament. So I have to imagine it's up there along with the Curse, which is also getting a ton of bans. BBP, Woke Waterboo Hooligans banning the Curse again, the Carries, the Cyclone Fleet, and the Kizril we saw in the last match. Anything stick out here to you?
I would say the Cyclone Fleet issue is kind of a little bit of a weird one. I don't think they're that good. But I do see that, like, if you ban a Kizril and you ban a Cyclone Fleet issue, that's going to make it pretty hard to get Minmatar rushed. In theory, in practice, at the end of the day, like, ships are ships, right? Like, you can slot things in so easily. You can still bring Lokis, you can still bring Nighthawks, you could still bring, like, some kind of cool, weird cruiser rush that we've seen in the past where, like, yeah, well, what if I bring, like, 6 or 7 Minmatar autocannon cruisers? Like, yeah, they die fast, but they do so much damage. So, not really sure about the Cyclone Fleet issue. The rest of them is, like, I mean, curses are broken, carries are strong, Kizrils we've seen be doing some, like, serious work already, even just today.
You're absolutely right. I will say the Cyclone Fleet issue, always kind of an interesting choice, because especially if you're running it with hams, there are other ham options sort of occupy the same space. You've got the Drake Navy, you've got the Nighthawk if you have the extra points for it. You have the Cyclone as well. So there are just a bunch of different choices. But we're about to see what these teams are going to go with. They are for our last match of this opening set. We have Burned My Props Sorry in red, and in blue, Woke Waterboo Hooligans with Thoronth, Starfleet Commander. We'll be back here with Wide Bart Pirate, CCP Overload, and me, CCP Jotun, here in just a couple of minutes. Jesus Christ.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the last match before the break. We have Woke Water Boo Hooligans. I think I said that right. Against, we have Burn My Prop, and I'm here with Ferumph, and I'm Starfleet Commander. Hello, Ferumph.
Hello, Starfleet. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. It's been a while, isn't it? So
you know what we haven't seen for a while, though, drones. Right? Oh no, wait, we've just seen them as well the previous match.
I was just about to say, what have Woke Water brought?
Well, they've brought a setup that I think might edge slightly even below the EPS what Exodus brought just a match before, because it's triple Stratios and regular Armageddon, and then you've got a Crew War instead of a Hyena, and then you have an Oneiros.
And for Burn My Prop, 2 Sleipnirs, 2 broadswords, Raptor and Osprey. This kind of seems like the same as the last match. I'm not going to lie, right?
Yes and no, because at the same time, those Stratioses, they can operate a little bit differently than Ishtars and Eoses. They have more mids. They can do tackle. They do actually have a lot of power grid. You can fit a lot of newts on them. And we'll see if they are going to turtle up and burn away, or they're just going to try and screen. Because I know what those Sleipnirs are doing, and you can see already. The Raptors are eating in. Yeah.
I mean, they have no choice but to go straight in. They did. The Stratioses did warp at 30. They're staying close, aren't they? And they've just dropped there's some bots out. I see right now. I see some ECMs out.
Creators. They have heavy drones. Yeah, this is a heavy drone, I think. Sorry, I stand corrected. Some Mad Lad has brought Wardens.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure I saw some Wardens drop. T1 Wardens. Some Mad Lad has dropped Wardens. Tech 1 Wardens. Damages on the Neros. It's a T2 Logi, so it can tank for a while, but it isn't half armor. I don't really see much damage coming onto the shield team right now. The Sleipnirs. There's some Raptors taking some shield damage, but they really need to get some big targets down here.
I mean, even those Raptors, you can see that there is some split there when it comes to the drones. The Oneiros goes down, so this is not any good news, right? Those Stratioses are right there in the action, so they are going to get, they're already probably tackled, and they are going to be systematically just decimated. The Raptor of Layla even is burning away. KCLP trying to catch up to it maybe, but it is just full shield again. There was a Crew War that Woke Water Dog Hooligans, they They sent it to tackle the Osprey, but I think that was completely inconsequential. Instead of maybe latching onto a Sleipnir, slowing them down, burning away, they just sent one of their screening ships right there to do nothing for the entire match.
Yeah, I mean, there's some DPS coming down on Wraith in the Sleipnir, but I think it's just a faint effort. You know, the Osprey's still alive.
He's gonna ASB once, my man, and you won't
He's
see
gonna
anybody.
ASB once. Yeah, he's got a local tank. He's gonna be fine. It's just a matter of time before the strategists go down. I just feel like these drone comps it's difficult for them to perform. You know, don't you think so? With the damage being
Absolutely.
applied.
Absolutely, it's a matter of damage. It's a matter of that you don't have. You have only 7 people in your team, so you don't have a comfortable blanket of E-War or like long-range screening ships like a Hyena. It's very difficult to put any respectable DPS on grid and take, for example, a Rapier when you are running drones. When all of the drone carriers that you wanna take are like Navy cruiser and up, right? So and even like if that plan of screening with Stratus worked, Sleipnirs, they just, you know, I'm fine. I load Hail. I will just murderize you here, and then I will go for your Logi.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Slep comp, to be honest. I mean, I love Sleipnirs. I think they're one of my favorite ships in EVE Online. In fact, it probably is my favorite ship in EVE Online, especially in the tournament scene. It's just a solid ship, and I just really like this comp. It's kind of clean, you know what I mean? This shield comp, I just find it really. It's very synergizing. It's got one plan, and it's to go in and just kill as much stuff as possible. But I just feel like the Stratos team, like I said, no, the Kura was, again, the Kura is their linchpin in a sense, like the Hyena was in the last match, right?
Well, I don't know if a ship that barely breaks 30-kilometer web range can be called a linchpin in this scenario, but I think that it could have been utilized better. Yeah. I have a question for you, Starfleet. Do you prefer the old model of the Sleipnir or the new one?
I prefer that's a hot topic question. I'm gonna say I prefer the new one.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have confirmed that you are not CCP fuzzy in disguise. All right.
No, I'm not CC was in disguise. As the Armageddon is going into low structure, I mean, a clean sweep for Burnt my prop Bob, sorry, and Woke Water Boo Hooligan's gonna obviously get no points. And I do think that, guys, drones, they're just not working. And there's good fights in locals. Well played. And with that, we'll take it back to the studio.
Burned my prop, sorry, taking the win over Brokewater O'Noligans. Not going well for these drone comps, as said by Starfleet Commander during that match. Once again, me, CCP Jotun, here with CCP Overload and Chest Hair Pirate. Guys, again, a well-executed assassination of the Brokewater Oneros by those Sleipnirs, by those broadswords. We'll talk briefly about it before we get into our break. CCP Overload, what did you see out of this team from Burn My Prop? Sorry, what did they do well in this match?
This was almost the same as the previous match. It was one team bringing a drone comp into a Minmatar rush and getting dunked on. This time, the only real difference was the team that brought the drone comp was in a different color. And they brought Stratioses, which is bold. I'm never the biggest fan of the Stratios in a tournament situation. There's almost 0 comps that exist where people have, from the start, put a Stratios into it. There's almost always a better ship, and that is a ban dodging or a point saving method. It is not the optimal ship for this situation. And drone comps right now are just, there's so many ways that they can get beaten in Minmatar Rush with things like the Kizrio, and other like Sleipnirs as well, are just too strong. I mean, I think Bart pointed it out that it is the broadsword that's probably the thing you want to ban to stop yourself getting rushed into oblivion.
Well, I was going to ask you too, BBP, or sorry, CHP. This Wokewater team, do you feel like that right now with the state of the meta that we're seeing develop over these last couple matches, do you think that these drone comps just have trouble with aggression specifically, or are they having trouble with these kind of gun heavy plays that we've seen in the last couple of matches?
I mean, they've always had trouble with it. Like that's kind of the thing about this is There's certain parts of the meta that really haven't changed over the last couple of years because certain ships haven't been changed over the last couple of years. Like, we've actually had probably over the last like 4 or 5 years some of the biggest balance changes EVE Online has ever had for some ships. Anybody that was a EVE boomer knows that we once had several years of literally nothing getting changed. But certain things haven't been changed, and what we've seen over the years is these drone boats have been consistently nerfed for TQ reasons, but hey, guess what? We play on the same patch, so if they get nerfed on TQ, they get nerfed here. And the problem is that as they've been nerfed, a lot of the Minmatar ships have been slowly buffed. So, even when these drone setups are really, really strong, you still kind of beat them by just rushing them down. Well, now we have drone setups weaker than they were. We have rushes, I wouldn't necessarily say a rush is stronger, but there's a lot more variety now because, like, okay, so you banned the Kizrael. Well, we literally were talking about it right before the match. A Kizrael is a Sleipnir, so they just brought Sleipnirs instead. And, like, the problem, I think, is that Wokewater decided to signal super, super hard, like, please don't rush me, and the other team was like, yeah, cool. So, like, what if we do that, though? And then they just got run down.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and you're correct, especially about how it's so hard sometimes with bans. You definitely want to avoid, you want your bans to be useful to you, but you don't want them to signal too hard about what you're going to implement for the next match. That being said, folks, we are now going to go to a brief break. When we come back, we'll have me, you'll have Starfleet Commander, you'll have the beloved Chad Flame here at the desk. We'll have Deebs and Murray in the arena, and we'll have Goonsnarm powered by AI versus Apple Sinikiljo Toimifi, the Finland team. I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine. We'll work through it together. After our break, we'll be back. Get yourself something to drink, get yourself something to eat, and we'll see you here in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back, folks, to the second half of the second day of the Anger Games 6, sponsored by Heatap. I'm here, of course, CCP Jotun, with my very good friends, Starfleet Commander and Chad Flame. Gentlemen, welcome to the desk. It's so exciting to have you both here. I know you've both been casting, been doing matches, and now you're here with me. It's lovely. Isn't it great? Doesn't it feel nice? Isn't it comfortable?
Well, definitely was quite a short move. Just sort of shimmied over to the next room, you know. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It was really exciting to commentate some matches and also get some Sleipnirs and some new drones for when I'm commentating. I don't know why. I mean, I've got a nice history of drones, but yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, let's dive right into it. We have two teams. First, we have the Finnish Toilet Moonshine team in red, and the Goonsnarm powered by AI team in blue. The Finnish Moonshine team banning out the Loki, the Gila, and the Sentinel, and the Goonsnarm powered by AI team banning out the Curse, Sleipnir, and Oneros. A lot of what we've seen already, but let's go ahead and talk about these bans from the Finnish Moonshine team. Chad Flame, what do you see? Loki, Gila, Sentinel?
I am seeing that they do not want to deal with those long-range Loki webs. Some Gila drones, those are very annoying to deal with. And the Sentinel's TDs and maybe a little bit of nuke pressure. Seems like they're just banning strong ships plus the Sentinel.
Yeah, the Sentinel I thought was kind of an interesting choice. You often see them in these kind of comps, just sort of brought in as a kind of an afterthought. They do they have they have some versatility. They are useful in certain comps, but it seems like an odd choice to be banning out. I mean, it's the equivalent of banning out like the Mollusk or the Carries or something, just with a different kind of use, right? And then SFC. Let's look at the Curse Sleipnir Oneros. An interesting one. They're kind of spreading their tactics here. Seems like between they have armor logi, they have the kind of the shield rush staple of the Sleipnir. Anything that seems unusual for you here?
I've just got to talk in chat. I have made my bed. Okay, it's been pointed out that the bed has been made. Thanks, Rain, for that. But as the band, it's the first thing everyone notices. What's behind me? As the bands, we got Curse, Sleipnir, Oneros. As you said, kind of spread. Curse is kind of nice, good control ban. Sleipnir's always a solid ban in my books. Just get that kind of, just sort of dilute that rush that can come up against you. And obviously the Oneros, obviously kind of signaling that you signaling that you don't really want to face an armor comp with a strong logistics. You can still for the Guardian, but the Oneros is definitely the stronger pick out of those two. Chad, if you had to hazard a guess, what are you expecting?
It's kind of interesting. I think that Goons is going to bring some sort of shield setup around that Gila Loki, maybe reading those bans, and Apple's probably going to look at those armor control setups and bring some sort of funky Marauder comp that they've been leaning towards.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think you're absolutely on. And I like that Dickard Wrinkle in chat did make a good point. Good-looking dudes don't make beds; we mess them up, which might say something about our friend Starfleet Commander. That being said, we're going to go out to the arena now. I think our teams are getting ready to start. We have about a minute left until this match. We have Deebs, we have Murray in the arena. Appelsini Kilju versus Goonsnarm powered by AI. We'll be back here at the desk in just a couple of minutes.
And welcome to the arena. This is Deebs, and with me is Murray. We've got Appelsini Kilju versus Goonsnarm. Appelsini has brought two Vargers, Svipple, Merlin, Svipple, Stork, and Osprey. Murray, what has Goonsnarm brought?
While the Vargers are cooking, the other side, we've got something a little more conventional. We've got some Kizriels and Cinnables, something we've seen a decent bit of today, backed up by a stronger logistics in the Scimitar and a couple of Jackdaws to round it out.
Well, this is going to be an interesting comp and an interesting fight, given that they are kind of along vaguely similar lines with autocannons and shields, but I think they'll play very differently. What do you think the red team's going to try and push for here?
it's going to be bloody early, but I think the key is that Goonswarm needs to find quick kills to make sure they can stabilize. If they lose a Kizreal early before things die, it's going to be rough. And we'll see if they choose to dive in here as the match gets underway. They actually do not. They choose to start diving backwards. You can see the Svipples are trying to grab something for the Vargers quickly, but if those Svipples go too far, they're going to get snapped before they can get repaired.
Yeah, and we see that now. One Svipple turned around, the other one decided a little too late to decide to turn around, and I think he's going to pay for it here, and he's down, pushing in a little bit too hard with the Kizreals being able to pull back and put that damage on them outside of the range of the Osprey.
Yeah, absolutely heads up play by Goonswarm here. Those Vargers are slow, and while they do have okay projection, they're not able to do anything against the Scimitar at that range. And so with the optimal range bonuses on the Kizreals, on the Cinnables, they should be able to try and look and pressure this team from range while they look for a good angle to hit that Osprey or find something else that's a good target.
Absolutely. We see now the team spreading out a little bit. The Kizreals trying to go around on the sides maybe here. They're not pushing up terribly quickly, but they are potentially angling for that. Maybe trying to get around to that Osprey, but that Osprey is playing in very tight.
Yeah, and the Vargers, they're plinking away at these Cinnables, but they're really not getting anything done. They are trying to snap a Jackdaw here of Grent, but again, it seems to be getting stuffed by the power of that Scimitar pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're putting absolutely no pressure on that Scimitar with it just sitting still back there, perfectly happy, knowing very well that the Vargers aren't able to pressure it, aren't able to get to it. There's nothing that can really go back there and pressure that Scimitar.
Now, what is funny here is neither team is really making any move. If they just sit here, eventually Goons will win. So there is some pressure on Apple here to make a play. Whether they're willing to wait all the way to overtime, I'm not sure. But somebody on Apple is going to have to do something. And there they go.
There they are,
Vargers
MJDs.
MJD directly onto the Scimitar.
They have Newts out and tackle on that Scimitar, and those Vargers should make pretty short work of that. That said, those Vargers are now well out of range of that Osprey, and that Osprey is also alone with very little to defend it. And the Goonswarm team is actually diving in, taking advantage of that to get rid of that Osprey.
Yeah, they know their Scimitar's dead. They have to make that Logi trade, but it's not a great Logi trade. That Scimitar is going to be worth more than the Osprey long term. And so even if they get this trade, it's still probably suboptimal for them.
Yeah, absolutely. These Vargers look like maybe they're having a little bit of trouble tracking the Scimitar. It's taking a little while for it to go down. They've got Newts on it. They've got Grapple. They've got Webs on it. So it should go down very shortly here. And it looks like it has.
The XLASB charges are gone. The Logi trade happens within seconds. Now, you might see, yep, they're going for the Stork first. Goons are trying to deal with the smaller ships first. Get those out of the way. Get those Lynx off field before they need to dive onto one of these Vargers.
Absolutely. And that Stork is dropping rapidly. It won't be long. There it goes. That means Lynx will be down shortly if they're not already down, given that the Vargers jumped out of range of that Stork. And now it's just two Vargers trying to plink at these things that have all of the range control in the world.
Yeah, unfortunately, Quan, he's held down. He's not able to move. And so the Vargers are able to hit him, and he's not able to kite away from these autocannons. With the tackle down, we'll see if he can try and get away, but he's still not moving. He may be
it looks like
out.
there are some Newts on him, so maybe he's just capped out. It doesn't have any cap for that prop. And there he goes.
Yeah. Now, Goons probably still have a slight advantage here. Jita is getting hit hard in that Varger. His shields are dropping. He's almost certainly going to have a shield booster. You can see it doing some work, but it is not doing enough work.
No, absolutely not. With those two Kizreals, they're putting out far more DPS than a tournament-fit Varger can tank. Maybe on TQ, you'd laugh at that damage, but here, that Varger just does not have the capability to tank that.
There's no Bastion button here to save you. Now, they will be able to kill the Cinnabol of Ranchi. Will that be enough for Jita to stabilize?
Jita managing to get a micro jump off should allow him to stabilize a little bit, but then again, the Kizreals can close that 100 kilometers very quickly.
a fantastic play from them. The fact that Goons don't really have the ability to tackle, working extremely in Apple's favor here, but they do get the Cinnable, that's helping, and Jita's going to get time to rep up his shields. Carib is absolutely disappearing now. Will he be able to MJD as well?
It looks not. They've got a scram on him. Will he be able to get that scram off of him in time? And I just know Jita repping armor there as well. These are dual tank Vargers, which is definitely a choice.
Yeah, not something you see often in the AT. The Grent Jackdaw was the one initially scramming him. He's down. Both Jackdaws are down now. I think that means they don't have any scrams left.
I believe that's the case. And looking here, I don't see the MJD effect. So will this Vargar get out? Does he think that now with the Jackdaws down, he can tank this? Certainly not.
Yeah, I mean, it is damage off field. He is trying to rep. You see the shields go up, but he's starting to bleed Hull. That said, Jackson and the Kizreal eating a decent amount of damage. He's got a self-shield booster, which is helping. But both of the Vargars are back in play here. They're both going to be able to do heavy damage.
Yeah, absolutely. But Carib won't be doing damage for much longer, given that he seems to be out of charges, out of Ansil reps. Whatever he was using to keep that up is now gone, and it's now a single Vargar already at half shields versus 2 Kizreals.
Now, one key thing here is while they may choose to dive this Vargar, and it looks like they are going to, Goons are ahead on points. They have the mobile ships. They could potentially look to dive away, keep themselves alive, and get out. But it appears that with Lord Jackson kind of neuted out, he can't get away from this Vargar, and so they're gonna just have to see if they can try and kill him before Jackson goes down.
Yeah, absolutely. And with 17 seconds left, there's not much time for them to do it before it goes into overtime, which I think will benefit the Kizreals, but Lord Jackson seems to be going down before that point, putting Goonswarm now in a very rough position.
Yeah, Jackson's out, so with the points as it is, it's Vargar versus Kizreal. I don't think the Kizreal has this.
The Vargar seems to be out of shields. He micro jumped away. He needs to make it another 2 minutes or so, 2 minutes 30 in order to survive. Can he kill the Kizreal in time? Can the Kizreal punish him enough? Does he have cap charges left? Will he be able to rep? I think it's still up in the air some degree.
The Vargar's got the advantage, right? So they've got the points advantage. He can just sit there. And if he's like reloading an Ansel on shield, for example, or something, people just staring at each other heavily benefits him.
Yeah, absolutely. The Kizreal not moving quickly, possibly a burnt prop, just waiting it out. But as he's doing that, as he's slowly crawling across the field at barely 270 meters a second, the Vargar is just chipping damage off of him. This is exactly what the Vargar wants. There we go. Propmon kicks on. Kizreal now moving in. But I think it's a little too late.
Yeah, the Kizreal has to go for it. He has to ram and hope that somehow that Vargar doesn't do something it's supposed to and he loses. But it's not a battle you want to go into.
Absolutely not. Kizreal still boosting, not out of HP yet, not out of shields yet, but can he take down the full Vargar, which just jumped again, using that Marauder bonus in order to have faster MJDs?
Play onto the Scimitar, the MJD play to escape. They really made the maximal use out of this module in order to get the advantages they needed to win this match.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was noted that the MJDs, they don't have any other props fitted. So this is a Vargar that sits still until it jumps 100 kilometers, which is definitely a ballsy play, and this was well executed.
Yeah, you know that Scimitar pilot will be kicking himself. It's one of those things that you don't think about until it's too late.
So 30 seconds left.
Sometimes it's bad.
The Kizreal seems to have given up. not trying to push against the Vargur that he knows he won't be able to make it to in time.
Yeah. Despite the fact that ships are in fact free on Thunderdome, it looks like the Kizriel will choose to keep himself off of the kill board as the match winds down here.
And with good fights in local, that's the end of the match, and we'll send it back to the desk, who I'm sure is eager to pontificate about that match.
Right, you are, Deebs. What a match! Goonstorm versus the Finnish Toilet Vodka team. Unbelievable! What a play! Who would have thought? Dual tanked MJD Vargurs versus a pretty standard Kizriel Shield Rush set. What SFC? What in the world are we? What is this comp?
I mean, first of all, dual tank Vargas. What is going on? When I saw that, I was like, no way. I was like, what? When you said that, I checked. Well, when the commentators were saying it, I checked the armor, and I was like, I did see it go up. And I was like, what is going on? First of all, J1 Tar, MVP of that match.
Yeah.
Holding as soon as he jumped, I was like, they've got it. They've got it. I mean, it just went from one side to the other. I mean, good play to get out of there when he's about to die, get out immediately, and just prolong the damage war and the EHP war. As soon as the Lodger went down, I do think the Vargas did have the edge. And then the armor reps came in, and I was like, what's going on?
Well, let's go ahead and move quickly to the next match because we did go into overtime. Chad Flame, Bright Side of Death versus only need 2 comps. Bright Side of Death banning the Paladin, the Balgorn, the Orthrus, and the Kizriel. Only need 2 comps, banning the Blackbird, the Abaddon, the Orthrus, and the Gaiter. Chad, the Paladin, Balgorn, interesting choices. What do you see here?
I do not believe that is the correct match, actually.
I am. I'm one row down. Ignore that, family. It's fine. We have Lazy Piglets, captained by our group favorite Mirror Chief versus Hangry Nubs, but with our own Dujek One Eye. Orthrus, Loki, Kizriel banned by Lazy Piglets versus the Bargus Gila Curse ban from Hangry Nubs. Chad, let's run it back. Orthrus, Loki, Kiz, what do you see?
I'm seeing more of those shield bans. You know, Orthrus is a great rapid light ship, just picking off low ends. Loki's with those webs can do the same exact thing, but also pairs well with a Kizriel Rush or Kizriel like Fly Killer Kite. The other end bringing that Bargus Gila Curse. You really don't want to see.
Oh, I think maybe I cut out for just a second, but yes. What do you think if you were? Have I cut out?
I think you can't. I think people can still hear me. Chad, can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, but Yotan is like breaking up very hard.
Okay. Well, yeah, we've got. Well, I'll just talk. So we've got Hangry Nubs bans, Bargus, Gila Curse. Again, lots for shield, Curse for control, Gila for the damage, Bargus for. I mean, the Bargus is OP as hell. This is a difficult team for me and a match because we've got Tuskers on one side basically, and we have my guy.
Yeah, SFC just cut out for me too. Crazy.
Well, you're back.
Am I back? Okay, I'm back.
You're back, and Starfleet is not back.
Well, listen, Discord's being very strange. It's fine. We're gonna skip past all of this. We're going down to the arena. We have Lazy Piglets. We have Hangry Nubs. We have Deebs and Murray. We'll be back here. Hopefully, by the time we get back, the sound issues will work themselves out. And until then, folks, we'll see you here in just a couple of minutes.
Hello and welcome back to the arena. I'm Deebs, joined still with Murray. We have 2 more interesting comps before us today. First, from the red team, we have Nighthawk, Cyclone, Scimitar, Rapier, Jackdaw, 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 with that triple Jackdaw that we've seen before. What about blue here?
We're looking at some Minmatar rushing, the double Sleipnir, double broadsword. Again, another comp we've seen earlier today. And when that comp first came out, we saw the Raptors dive the back line, get some tackle for these other DPS ships to help win the match. This time, those Raptors have their work cut out for them because there's a lot of projected damage that can easily prevent them from doing that.
Somewhat better in the shield comp. So that's going to absolutely slow down some of that coming in, but you can't stop 6 ships rushing in.
Yeah, as the match gets underway, it'll be interesting to see whether they choose to dive or kite. It can be an instant death for these Raptors if they play it wrong, and they are going to try going forward.
Absolutely. Everybody is going forward. One Raptor a little bit more brave than the others, but there we go. Dread Pirate Rogers, lesser known cousin, is going in now trying to catch up, but perhaps what
diving, the Raptor barely manages to dodge back as its armor is gone, but its shields are back up. Meanwhile, the Sleipnirs are trying to do the heavy work here of trying to catch something. Some of these ships are going to be hard to grab. They've got the Rapier that's able to do some screening. You can see it peeling off those broadswords because it's scared of those, meaning the Sleipnirs are
Dread Pirate Rogers sucks out what Alethil avoided and went down very quickly there. We now have still somewhat of a chase going on here as the Raptor tries to get tackle on something, anything, in order to hold it down for the Sleipnirs to put damage onto.
Yeah, Alethil is dead, so that's one tackle gone. This Rapier's taken a bit of damage, but so far it's kind of hanging on. It's doing what it's got to do. This Nighthawk will eventually get caught, though, and it looks like they may have to go for that target. With the Raptors down, though, they're focusing their sights on the Osprey.
Caught, though. Mirachiv scrammed and webbed, but they have traded a scram and a web for losing their logistics, which not necessarily what I'd want to do.
Yeah, and without any ships that can really tackle the Scimitar now, especially with those Rapier webs keeping those broadswords at bay, it's going to be almost impossible for Hangry Nubs to try and find a window back into this match. Even if they kill the Nighthawk, everything else on grid has so much mobility, it's going to be so difficult for them to try and find the necessary targets.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mirachiv's team knows that. Lazy Piglets trying to take out the broadswords, which are the biggest threat to them once the Nighthawk goes down, as it's kind of assumed that it might. But one broadsword down, only one left. If they take out that second broadsword, those Sleipnirs really don't have a hope of catching anything except
Nighthawk. They're losing DPS too rapidly. With the first broadsword down, it's already starting to rep up. Once the second broadsword goes down, I don't see a world in which this Nighthawk is going to be able to be killed.
Absolutely. It looks like they're going to take out Dujek now. The Nighthawk struggling still, getting lower and lower. The Sleipnir does have plenty of tank, so maybe they can still squeeze this out and take down the Nighthawk, but I don't think that it matters one way or the other at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it really goes back to how they were able to kite early on, and the fact that those light missile jackdaws are such a threat to those Raptors, who were really the only hope that Hangry Nubs had to try and get a good initial target to kill.
Yeah, absolutely. Those jackdaws, as we saw at the beginning, the first Raptor barely survived. Before any reps were even able to land on it.
We see the first Sleipnir go into hull and get removed. Mirachiv at this point is comfortably safe, as Groot is the last person to take some damage and get chipped down off field.
Chase down this faster team, but just not quite fast enough.
Looking back at the match, like, is there anything you could have seen differently from the Raptors, maybe, or from the initial play that they could have, like, taken an angle to try and get something going?
It's possible, but I feel at that point you're really hoping for the other team to make a tactical error that you can capitalize on, which isn't a bad strat, but when it's the only one that you have, that's a really rough spot to be in. Those Raptors are always going to be under threat from those Jackdaws, which have incredible range and really can apply in sharpshooter mode to those Raptors.
All right, and with Groot going into Hull, no XLASB left, he goes down. The match is over, and we'll look to pass this one back to the desk to break it down.
Welcome back, folks. Sorry about the audio issues we've been having. They're intermittent. I promise this is a Discord thing, not an us thing. But we are going to go and try and persevere here. A pretty standard dub by the team from the Tuskers, this Lazy Piglets team, captained by Beer Chief. A pretty straightforward missile kite versus shield rush setup. Chad Flame, let's start with this Tuskers team. They have a pedigree of being able to perform well with these kind of kite comps, these kite concepts. And we saw in their banning out the Orthrus can sometimes, I feel like, lead people to believing that they might be trying to avoid something like that or trying to avoid seeing it used against them. But again, who needs Orthruses when you can just bring 3 Jackdaws?
Yeah, exactly. Tuskers, aka Lazy Piglets, is known on the AT and other tournaments for bringing kind of wonky setups that might not be seen as optimal by some groups, and using ships to fill in for bans or ships that might be normally seen. And they did that right there, going against the Shield Rush with 3 Jackdaws, really good at picking apart those Raptors, and just saying we don't really need some of those Orthros to do that when we have a Jackdaw that's less points.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that too, because Starfleet Commander, let's talk about these Raptors for a second. The Raptors, especially for a rush team, so important to hold down targets until the broadswords and the Sleipnirs can get up in the mix. Those Raptors, though, easy picking for sharpshooter Jackdaws. If you're in a position like that where you are a Raptor, but you land on the grid, you see what you're up against. Is there a better play for those Raptors than just to try and rush in, or maybe try and pull back, or are they always going to be at risk from those Jackdaws no matter where they're at?
I think it depends on where you land at the beginning of the match. If you feel like you're close enough to burst your MWD, get on a target really quickly, then go for it. But Lazy Piglets or the Brave team, they're up against it. They're up against the Rapier. As soon as they get, the first Raptor, I believe, he got webbed and he immediately turned around, which was the correct thing to do, because if he gets hit, he's gonna die. But I do think, Brave Piglets, I think in this match had a difficult challenge up against them, because coming up against Lazy Piglets, Mira, Planet 6, and they've got a big pedigree in the tournament scene. And I was watching, if you saw it in the stream, they were kiting really well together, flying in formation, moving together, using the Rapier to scream for as much as they can. But obviously, if they could get, they got Mira tackled, I believe, but it was kind of a little too late, wasn't it? Yeah. And what is up with Planet 6 not in the Logi? I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, very strange. Scimitar was Scorched Celeste, a new sign here. Maybe a changing of the guard, but Planet 6 holding it down in the Cyclone. And you can really tell, I feel like a lot of people will look at the comp like this. They see the Nighthawk for sure. But then outside the Nighthawk, there's not a ton of damage. The Jackdaws obviously have decent DPS, though they are better known for their range than they're just upfront DPS. The Cyclone, sure. The Rapier, no. But it's with a comp like that. It's almost like a shield control comp. It's about controlling space. It's about controlling range. It's about controlling the enemy support ships, especially on the low end, especially with all of those Jackdaws. You can really just nuke something from orbit.
They're kind of like Lazy Piglets are kind of gone more of like a leveled out comp. They got kind of just 2 battle cruisers, and then they have a cruiser and 3 destroyers. Whereas Hangry Nubs have gone like two battle cruisers, 2 cruisers, another. They've sacrificed a T2 Logi to just push the up, get more points into the top end. I think Lazy Piglets probably saw and watched on grid and thought this is perfect. Immediately kill the Raptors, and they can just kite all day.
Well, let's go ahead and move on now. We have just a couple minutes left until the next match starts. I think that our audio issues revealed, unfortunately, early. My bad. For Bright Side of Death, the Paladin, Balgorn, Orthrus, Kizriel. My bad. Thank you. From Bright Side of Death versus you only need 2 comps with Blackbird, Abaddon, Orthrus, Alligator. Let's talk about, again, the Paladin and the Balgorn. This is the talking point I wanted to use earlier and didn't get to. Chad Flame, why the Pally? Why the Balgorn? What's so interesting about this?
So these are heavy armor battleships that you can put some newts in those upper high slots that you're going to have for utility in the Paladin. The Balgorn is very good at webbing and controlling an area of space. The Paladin doesn't do it as well as the Balgorn, but it's definitely tanky, has projection, and you don't really want to be up on it if you're a ship that needs capacitor. And they did a really good job banning out those kind of armor control ships.
That's true. Apparently my audio cut out right as I was saying that the audio was no longer cutting out. Spectacular. The timing could not be more perfect. Listen, this is a well-oiled operation here. We do everything is planned up to the moment, including those audio failures, as it were. Starfleet Commander, the Blackbird, the Abaddon, the Orthrus. Now the Alligator and the Kizriel here, both being our 4th bands. So the Orthrus, a dual ban. What do you think here? Alligator, Abaddon, Orthrus, and then plus the Gator on top of that.
Well, the Blackbird and Abaddon kind of nice. Blackbird obviously get rid of that ECM. Abaddon is a nice solid ban for those we saw it earlier today, kind of on its own win the match. Orthrus, as Overload said, probably one of the strongest ships in the tournament. And the Alligator, I guess, just complementing the Orthrus ban. That's kind of my thought process as they're going for that. Obviously, BSOD, one of those teams, you never know what they're going to bring. Speaking from experience, and I'm sure they're I'm sure only need 2 comps. I'm probably thinking the same thing. They're kind of just a wild card in the tournament scene, I think.
It is interesting because it almost looks to me as a layman hack that both of these teams are looking at potentially brawling, because they've banned out a lot of great brawling ships. They banned out the Paladin, they banned out the Alligator, they banned out the Balgorn. All of those ships do a lot of damage at close range, and the Paladin also can scope things with Scorch from a distance. Obviously, has a lot of utility there, but it does make you think that maybe they're anticipating using their own rush comps or their own brawl comps and finding ways to mitigate or play around those. So I'll be interested to see how this works out. Folks, don't forget, if you have not done so yet, you can also watch our second stream at the same time you're watching this stream. In fact, that's our second stream back over there. That's at twitch.tv/Eve Tournaments. That's twitch.tv/Eve Tournaments. Hopefully their audio is not as jacked up as ours is, but who can say? Gentlemen, let's look at this real quick before we go down to the arena. Chad Flame, looking at these bands, looking at these teams, what are you predicting for the win today?
I am going to be predicting that only need 2 comps wins, with Starfleet said some nice rushing or armor control.
And Starfleet, what do you think between these 2 teams?
I'm going to go for BSOD just to be different, because I've come up against them before and they can put out some really interesting comps. So I'm going to go with them.
Well, they certainly do have some interesting comps, and both of these teams are in the arena right now. So we're going to go down to Deebs and Murray again. For this match between Bright Side of Death and Only Need 2 Comps. We'll be back here in the desk in just a couple of minutes.
Welcome back to the arena. We've got a bit more of a mismatch in comps this time. On the BSOD red side, we've got Triple Gila with a Cyclone Fleet at the top end, a Bazzi behind him, interestingly enough, but a pretty strong, aggressive composition. What do we have on blue for Only Need 2 Comps?
Only Need 2 Comps has an interesting choice here. It's looking sort of like a drone comp here. Armageddon Navy, Prophecy Navy, the Vexor, Crewer, Magus, Celestis, and then interestingly for Logi, a Rodiva, which is certainly something that I don't think we've seen before this tournament.
Yeah, a fresh choice on the Rodiva. It's got that same spool rep power that the Zarm does, but a lot less of its own personal survivability. So it'll be interesting to see whether that's the target choice for those Gilas, for those deadly drones that they can dish out. What do you think these comps are going to be looking to do at the start of the match?
I think the Gilas will want to push and really take advantage of the fact that Rodiva is going to struggle to get reps up under the punishing Gila damage. They're going to be able to really
Alexa, set the main room lights to white mode.
Throw their damage at.
Yeah, I think
Alexa, set the main room lights to 100%.
I'm kind of trying to keep my eye on here is the Celestis. Now, it's not useful against enemy damage, but it can newt the Bazzi. That said, we actually see the Gilas diving backwards. It looks like they want to give themselves some time, give their drones some time to do some work before they really brawl it down with these bigger ships.
And in fact, they are going for that Celestis. They really, maybe some of the drones are on the Celestis, some going for the Crewer instead. They don't want those webs. They don't want those newts on them. Damage kind of being split up all around, which with the Rodiva might be a really good play, given that Rodiva struggles to swap between repping targets.
Yet the Crewer is gone out of armor, and it looks like it's going to get snapped. The Rodiva may not be able to spool it up and protect it in time, as it's trying to rep the Vexor and Celestis as well.
Absolutely. With the Rodiva, only one rep, so it is legitimately impossible for it to swap reps. Except with some unbonus, possibly Spall Repper. You see that on Zarm sometimes. Making split damage, normally a very bad choice, actually very viable against Triglagy.
Yeah, and one thing to note too is that these Gilas are actually rapid light. So they really are, between their drones and the rapid lights, they're looking to snap these small targets. Now, there is some damage going on the other side. It looks like they've decided to take some shots at the Jackdaw, but it's not being very successful. Meanwhile, again, 2 ships eating damage, the Prophecy Navy, heavy damage, and the Celestis still with some chip damage as well.
We also see missiles starting to land on the Rodiva. The Rodiva struggling to even keep the Prophecy Navy, a fairly relatively tanky ship, up, even with its ramped reps, as it's been on that for some time now. If the Rodiva can't keep the Prophecy Navy up, I don't know how much of a chance they had to begin with here.
Yeah, and it has to be super careful too, because if that Rodiva gets out of position while it's trying to rep, it can easily get destroyed as well. And despite the spool, despite the heavy repping, Frank Latank's Prophecy Navy issue is dropping. It is barely 20% armor left, and it's not looking to go back up.
Yeah, absolutely. Those Gilas with those rapid lights, they will run out. Their clips will go down, but I think they actually already have. And this is just drone damage, damage from the Cyclone Fleet issue, just punching through that T1 Logi rep.
Yeah, and the roughest thing too is you look at the other side, you look at the attack bar for only needs 2 comps. While they are getting some damage on this Jackdaw, their damage bar, almost none of it's being applied. They're just not finding an angle or the tackle they need to try and get onto a good target. They're trying to newt and get to this Basilisk, which would be an option to get them back into this game. But whether it's going to be too little too late as the Prof Navy drops is an entirely different question.
Yeah, absolutely. This Jackdaw slowly going down, finally looks like it might fall, but trading a Jackdaw for a Prophecy Navy and a Crewer is not exactly the world's greatest trade. That said, the Basilisk does look like it's getting hit pretty hard, possibly neuted out. Not moving quickly here. No, it's got no prop on. The Jackdaw coming back, swapping their damage onto the Basilisk, trying to take that out as quickly as possible to give themselves some hope of staying in this.
Yeah, the Armageddon Navy, those long-range newts are really, the only thing that kind of gave them this window of opportunity to get back into the match. The Bazzi is trying to pull away now. It managed to sneak out at least one cycle of prop, maybe another, and if it can get out away from that Armageddon Navy, it may be able to buy its team some extra time.
Yeah,
However,
absolutely.
whether they even need that time is hard to say, as now they're looking to get those Gila drones down onto the Magus and snap that before the Rodiva can grab it.
Yeah, and we see that the Basilisk looks like it's gotten a fairly clean escape there. It's still taking some damage. It still has drones on it. It might eventually go down under that Armageddon Navy pressure, but I think at this point it's relatively safe. And in the meantime, we've got the Rodiva at half armor and dropping, the Magus at half armor and dropping. The Vex are taking a little bit of damage. That Magus is not long for the world. Rodiva not long for the world.
Yeah, the Magus looks like it'll drop first, but neither ship is going to survive. And without the logistics, with so little damage left on grid between the Vexor and the Armageddon Navy, it's almost impossible to see how they can kill the Bazzi, let alone anything else that's getting repped by the Bazzi.
Yeah, absolutely. With tackle, there's a grapple on the Basilisk, but it's hardly slowing it down, still managing to pull 1,700, 1,800 meters a second. It's walking away just fine. No Logi left. Magus in half armor. Nothing has any sort of real tackle other than the Jackdaw, which is just sort of sitting there, perfectly happy to be tackled, apparently. I don't see how this is winnable at this point for only need 2 comps.
Yeah, and it's one of those frustrating slow deaths, right? Where like you see the entire enemy comp and you just know that there's no good target for you. You're trying to get the Bazzi, it's not working, but you know that if you switch to something else, that's an even worse target. And so it's just a very frustrating situation to find yourself in as you're slowly getting killed by these Gila drones.
Yeah, absolutely. The Basilisk, as we mentioned, ASB charges eventually running out. I don't know that it matters. I think that it probably will still survive. Vexor Navy going down now. Just an Armageddon Navy left with just under a minute left in the match. This certainly must have been frustrating for that team as they just watched all of their targets walk away from them, unable to really do anything about it.
Yeah, you could see the theory, right? Especially with the Armageddon Navy in combo with the Celestis. You can damp out their logistics, which means the logistics has to come in close to rep, and then the Armageddon Navy can kind of get its claws on it. But even by the time that they were able to really threaten that Basilisk, they'd already lost some key ships, right? The Prophecy Navy, a lot of their DPS was gone. And so even when that plan kind of came into being, it wasn't enough to try and win the match.
Yeah, absolutely. You really have to wonder if the Rodiva was the right choice here, given that it just struggles so hard to rep, I mean, really anything, but especially multiple targets, which fighting something like Gilas and Jackdaws where they can really reach out and touch whatever they want to is really the right call.
Yeah. Now, the Geddon Navy has itself rep, but it's not going to be enough as the ship goes down and the match finishes up.
Yeah, and with that, we'll send it back to the desk for them to analyze that.
Welcome back, folks, to the Anger Games desk, sponsored by Amazon Alexa. We have an exciting match here. Very interesting. The triple Gila comp with a Fleet Cyclone and the Hero Basilisk of Sky Dart versus what is probably the closest thing we've seen to an armor control comp in this tournament so far. Starfleet Commander, let's talk about this BSOD team, because you predicted this one. You had the premonition that BSOD was going to pull one out. What was their strat in this one?
Well, BSOD, as always, actually bringing a pretty solid comp, and I like what they did. They pushed out some medium drones out of the Gila, killed the Kura, and then dropped Vespers. Just abandoned the other set, and then immediately dropped another set, which was the correct thing to do, because the first set of drones was so far away. With a drone comp, you can't. It's such a waste of time, like having drones go across the field. You're probably like 50-60 kilometers. So they dropped the drones and immediately went on some other targets. But they did kind of falter, I think. I don't know what you think, Chad. Do you reckon they could have cleaned it up a bit quicker? There was a lot of damage going across the board. Do you reckon if they just sort of focused, they could have cleaned up a bit quicker?
I think that there was a point in the match that they were doing a good job with burning in, dropping, like you said, new sets of drones, changing out the drones so they didn't have to travel as much. But it did seem like there was a point where damage was a little bit split, and then they, were maybe trying to play with the Rodiva, which I can understand that strategy. But as a drone comp, they might have just been able to just headshot the Rodiva after they got that core kill and kited the match, just to make it go by a little bit quicker, get more kills. The Rodiva is a good Logi ship, but it does not have a lot of tank, and maybe getting rid of it earlier would have allowed them to get all of the ships killed in that match.
I don't disagree. Now let's talk about this only needs two comp because I like this comp. It's an interesting comp, and Deeves in the it may have been Deeves, may have been Murray. One of the two of them in that in the commentaries desk mentioned how you can see the machinations at work here. You can see the play with the Navy Geddon, with the Celestis, with the Navy Prophecy, trying to bring things in, but just not quite enough. The crew are getting scoped early, standard fare for crewers. They always go out almost immediately. But then everything just getting picked apart and not being able to hold anything down. Is that a weakness of, because we've talked so much about how drone comps suffer when they have to deal with kiting comps. With a comp like this where you're not kiting at all, is that something that they have that drone comps do much better against Starfleet?
Yeah, I think so. And also just looking at the only need two comp setup, they've got the Celestis in there, which kind of doesn't do much in this comp really, because BSOD, if they they can just cycle through. I'm assuming all the ships on there, especially all the Gilas, the Cyclone, the Jackdaws, can be assists, drone assists, so they can kind of circumvent that. I think the Rediva is kind of the failure in only need two comps, as Chad said. I think the restriction of repping one ship in that comp kind of settled it, I think
you may be right. Let's go ahead and move on then to our next match. We have Smile and Wave in red versus Disaster in blue. Smile and Wave banning the Orthrus, the Gator, and the Armageddon, and the Disaster team banning the Paladin, Curse, Loki. Let's start with you, Chad. Flame, the Orthrus, Gator, and Geddon. Like I said before, seems like a mix of bands. Looks like they're trying to target several different things at the same time.
We saw these bands similar to last match, and it leaves the Gila wide open again. 21-point Gilas versus the Gator. Seems a little interesting to leave one open, have the other, so we might see them. But it does seem like they're attempting to ban out similar things to last match.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially when you mix in the Geddon. When you're trying to ban a Geddon, it feels like you're trying to make sure that let's say your high, somebody said yesterday, your high ships that run on electricity, your high capacity ships are, have a little bit more flexibility, but a little more room to breathe. But then you ban out the Gator and the Orthrus as well, which don't seem to mesh with that exactly. Let's look at these bands. Starfleet Commander from Disaster, the Paladin, the Curse, and the Loki. The Pally, like I said, always an interesting choice to see this one go out in a band list.
I think Paladins are always good to get like a core setup, a staple ship that's going to be built around, the setup will be built around a Paladin. So getting that out of the way will just, restrict some comps. The Curse of Loki, the Curse is banned a lot, as I'm seeing it across the sheet right here. Kind of a good ban. It's very dangerous for logistics. The Curse, so kind of good to get that, especially, you can basically just nuke the logistics out and just write off. You don't have to worry about it. For the Loki, a good all-rounder. It's going to stop webs, so they might be wanting to bring some sort of shield kiting setup, and that will, they can not worry about those long-range webs with a good tank.
I think you are absolutely on the money with that one. Let's go. We only have a couple seconds left here, gentlemen, and teams are actually, teams are on the grid, so we're going to go down to. Just kidding. Teams are getting set up. They're getting very comfortable. They've taken off their shoes. They're getting kind of situated here. Let's go. Predictions. Chad Flame first. Smile and Wave and Disaster. What do you think?
I'm going to go with Disaster.
And you, Starfleet Commander?
Without looking at the arena, I'm looking at the sheet. I'm not looking at what's on screen. I'm gonna go for Smile and Wave based on their bans. I think that they have a plan.
Well, I am going to go with based on what I saw yesterday, I'm going to go with Disaster as well. They played very well, and I think the predictions look about the same as well, 64-36. But with that being said, we're going now down to the arena. Smile and Wave in red, Disaster in blue. Once again with Deebs and Murray. We'll be back here in just a couple of minutes to break down the match as soon as they're done.
Welcome back to the arena. Smile and Wave on the red side have picked up A good old Hail Never Fails triple Sleipnir classic. But the comp on the other side's a little more interesting, Deebs. Take us through it.
Sure. So we've got something of a kiting comp here. Very strong in the high end, but seems to be very low DPS as well. Really only the Barghest for DPS, supported by a Rapier, an Augur, Pontifex Carry, Sentinel, and Maulus. So they've got all of the Ewar in the world. They have an Armor Barghest and a T1 Logi, which I think all interesting choices.
Yeah, it's going to be so much on this Rapier to try and split the enemy damage, try and give their team the chance to play, because these Sleipnirs are going to go in and they're going to do a lot of damage, a lot of explosive damage against this armor team.
Yeah, absolutely. And the carries, the Sentinel, the Maulus, all things that can also spread them up. They've got those long points on the carries, and they've got the webs on the Rapier. But is it enough to really stop 3 Sleipnirs, a Merlin, and a Svipul from going at you?
Well, at the start, the Sleipnirs are saying, we don't want to be webbed, so we're going to head back towards this MJD beacon, threaten a play off of the MJD beacon. And so you can see that the Barghest and his homies, they're moving in to try and get themselves at a distance where they're not getting jumped on and immediately scram web down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just struggle to see how they're going to be able to handle this when they really don't have much damage. Like that Barghest, even with that support from the Rapier, if it can get webs on the scalp, it's going to struggle to get those scalpels. It's going to struggle to really break anything other than maybe the Svipul. There's just not much damage on the blue side here.
Yeah, you can see the pile of Ewar that's going down, though. There's a bunch of ships that are damped. There's ships that are TD'd. And they're going to try and snap this Merlin with the Barghest DPS. Now, it looks like they don't really know if they want to go for an MJD play here. They're considering just trying to motor back in, but that Rapier is going to make it a problem, webbing Mickey Knox in the Slep and webbing the Merlin as they try to shoot it. That said, so far, the Merlin seems to be holding. Nope.
And with that, the Merlin disappears
as it instantly dies.
But that said, the Sentinel now taking a little bit of damage. It's through shields, but it is armor tanked. They do have that Augur keeping it up, and they're now trying to go for the Svipul and break that as well. These Scalpels struggling a little bit to keep it up under, again, what seems to be not that much damage.
Yeah, the damps are a problem, but the Svipul has made the correct choice of getting close to those Scalpels so they can still lock him. They can give him reps. And it looks like the clip may have clipped, as it were. Now, there's these 3 Sleipnirs trying to make a move. They're all sitting next to each other, but they're not able to actually grab anything, as, you know, the other team has really just, they've kited all the way back. KDF, they've managed to avoid any of the issues that one of them getting scrammed would cause.
Absolutely. The carries now, though, deep in armor here, now getting repped up. Barrage, drones, doing a little bit of work there. Not enough, though, and we continue to see this team really struggling, trying to find something that they can chew.
Yeah, Disaster doing a good job keeping themselves away. Now, the Rapier getting in web range does mean that he's in range to get hit with some barrage. And you can see the Sleipnirs are kind of trying to go for him, seeing if one of them can pick him up, as Mickey Knox's Sleipnir is taking some big damage.
We see that big damage. Sleipnir, of course, has plenty of local tank itself, but if it's too far forward, those Scalpels can't get to it in time. It could still go down. The Rapier breaking contact easily with webs across all of the Sleipnirs, really slowing them down and making this absolutely painful for them as they try to just get their hands on anything so that they can get on the board themselves.
Yeah, now one thing that they do have that they can try and use to break this situation as the Svipul takes a bit of damage is that the main damage from the other team, that Barghest, it has a reload. And so there are these windows of opportunity where it's on reload and maybe the Svipul gets a chance to dive in, assuming that it lives through this clip, which it may not.
Correct. And with that said, the Caster Curse continuing to murder poor Smile and Wave as the Svipul does go down, really meaning that the Smile and Wave team has no fast tackle left. Sleipnir's speedy, but not speedy enough to grab anything when you've got these Mollusk, Carries, and Rapier all working, and even the Sentinel to some degree, all working to keep them off of them.
Yeah, and massive credit to Chad in the Rapier. Having to balance trying to screen enemy tackle is difficult enough when you're doing it to one person. Doing it to 3 Sleipnirs at the same time while also managing your positioning can be incredibly difficult. Now, that difficulty is also why he's currently in half armor and running back to his auger to make sure he can get enough reps, as they do manage to snipe one of the scalpels down.
Yeah, with that scalpel going down, I think it might be too little too late, even if they were able to get this Rapier, which is now clawing back plenty of armor. The auger has its reps on it. I'm not sure super why that auger wasn't repping it before. Maybe a little bit of bait tanking there. But the Rapier now sitting quite happily, full health, and the scalpels, as noted previously, mated for life. Once one goes down, the second one follows quickly.
Yeah, the situation isn't getting any better for Smile and Wave. They've still got their DPS core, but the DPS core isn't DPSing, which does tend to make it a little less.
Someone start streaming. The Sleipnir's going down.
Karlum do be dead as his hull reduces itself to 0. And now it's going to be Mickey Knox's turn to take some damage.
Yeah, as they continue chasing things around, just looking for something. But I really think that no matter what they do at this point, even if the Rapier boundaried itself and the auger decided to follow him out, it would just be not enough at this point.
Big rip. And that is why, unfortunately, you need some tackle with your rush comp. Because if you can't tackle anything, then you lose. I mean, that said, the Rapier, Armor Rapier, obviously a pretty heads-up choice here. Especially when, unfortunately, you've only got 3 Sleipnirs.
Yeah, and I believe the stream is back up, and with the match being over, we will attempt to send it back to the desk.
Hello. I'm back at the desk, I think. Yeah, no, we're back. Hey, look at that. That's great. Hey, listen, you know, we're having a good time here. Everybody's very relaxed. That was a good match. I'm sorry you guys didn't get to see some of it, but you got to see a little bit of it, which was great. So let's talk about this one. Let's talk about, of course, me again, CCB Jotun here with Chad Flame, my very good friend, Starfleet Commander. Chad Flame, also my very good friend. Let's not mince words here. Let's talk about the rush comp versus the control comp. Mentioned at the very end of that is the issue of if you don't have anything to tackle, your rush comp does become a problem, especially when you're up against a comp that is super, super control heavy with that Rapier, with the carries, with the Mollusk. Chad Flame, let's start with you. This Bargus comp that Disaster brought is nasty. What did you see out of them?
So the biggest thing I have to point out is Chad Hammercock being who he is, going in there, absolutely dominating with those webs, holding down those Sleipnirs. They could not go anywhere. Every single Sleipnir had a web on it for most of the match, which is a big thing about Sleipnir rushes. They're fast. And if you're throwing webs on them at long range and they can't actually get on top of anything, and that's the biggest tackle in your comp, outside of a Merlin and a Svitbull that died very quickly in the beginning, you're not going to catch anything.
You are absolutely right, and it's so tough too because you know the Sleipnir comp, especially this dual or this triple Sleipnir comp, has so much staying power. If you can get within range of something to hit it, it does great against other high DPS comps that just like to sit there and brawl. It has a ton of damage for those. Can even catch certain kind of drone comps as well. Maybe things that aren't quite as don't have the same kind of, like I said, not as much screening, not as much control. But this is like the worst case scenario for what they ran into. Starfleet Commander, looking at this comp, we saw Disaster banning out the Paladin, swapping in a Bargus. The Bargus obviously is not what we would necessarily call a one-to-one trade with the Paladin, but seeing an armor Bargus here and making sure that the other team did not bring a Paladin that could have plinked at it from range. Do you think that was the calculated move here?
Yeah, I think exactly that. They clearly wanted to get rid of that projection, but I believed in Smile and Wave. I mean, an Armor Rapier, it's got 6 mids, at least 2 webs minimum, probably 3. I think Smile and Wave's play here was burning back. I don't think that was good. They're just giving time. They obviously went back to go to the MJD beacon, realized that the other team have moved closer, so they can't jump on top of them. Honestly, I think if they were close enough, and I asked in the chat, I think they walked in at 50, I think, or 40 or 50, I think. A bit far. If they went in a bit closer, maybe, yeah, some of them are going to get web, but if they get onto that Rapier, kill the Rapier, you saw how even with barrage loaded, I'm assuming, that the tank would be minuscule on the Rapier. Like if they got anything on it to get close, just to get some tackle and get the Rapier down, then there would have been a different game.
Well, let's go ahead and move quickly to our next match, the last one of this set. Gentlemen, I know you'll be leaving me after this, and I have enjoyed our time together. We have the team from Paid Actors versus the team from Odin's Call in blue, Paid Actors in red. Paid Actors banning the Scimitar. Yes, the Scimitar, the Orthrus, the Armageddon. Odin's Call banning the Curse, the Pally, and the Kiz. Chad Flame, Scimitar, Orthrus, Armageddon. Anything stick out to you there? Anything unusual?
That Scimitar ban really signaling that they don't want to deal with the shield kite. Fast, really good resistance, good reps. It seems like that's what they're kind of aiming towards. I think that's actually a better option for the shield kite than some of the other options we've seen today. So that's probably what they're trying to avoid.
And Starfleet Commander, looking at this, the ban list from Odin's Call, Curse, Pally, Kizrael. Again, Paladin ban twice in a row, plus the Kizrael, pretty popular ban pick the last couple of matches. Anything stick out to you here that they might be trying to avoid?
Exactly, you said Paladin Curse out of the way, signaling they don't want to deal with projection, they don't want to deal with any newts that can, projecting newts as well, and dangerous newts. The Kizrael, again, kind of like that sort of can be used as a kiting a comp as well, which we saw earlier today, which is really effective. I think I'm going to give Odin's Call the edge here.
Well, let's go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say, Chad Flame, of these two teams, Paid Actors, Odin's Call, if you're going to make a prediction, what would that prediction be, my friend?
I'm going to go with Odin's Call, not just to please you, but to think that they're just a better team, and let's hope that they can execute really well here.
I do love me some Odin's Call. You're not wrong about that. Starfleet Commander, the same for you?
I'm going to go with Odin's Call again. I think, as Chad said, they're a strong team. They're gonna probably win.
Well, this will probably not surprise anybody, but I'm also going to go to Odin's Call because I think they're going to win. Paid Actors, good team, but Odin's Call, real good team. We are going to. Let me check in the ear here real quick. Do we have teams in the arena? I think that's a yes, probably.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yes. Sorry, I've got my man in my ear up here. So we do have teams in the arena. We are going to be going down to our next casting team. I believe it's our next casting team. Yes? Question mark? Yes?
Yes, we're not going to be here after the match.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, gentlemen. Our next casting team of CCB Overload and hopefully Black Bart Pirate will be back here at the desk in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned, friends, for this exciting match coming up here in just a few moments.
Hello, everyone. I am CCP Overload. This might be 102.5 BBC Radio Overload, as I think I'm waiting for Black Bart Pirate to log back in, as he forgot he was casting this match. But for now, we can look and see what we have. So the Scimitar is banned on the Paid Actors side. So instead, they are bringing the classic Florida Man comp, 4 of your finest reptiles ready for you, and they're going up against Odin's Call. They are bringing, look at this, it's the Nighthawk Basilisk Cyclone. It's pretty much a triple stack of death, so we will see what happens as the countdown is underway.
Honestly, I kind of just wanted to let you keep going because your voice is so soothing to me. But you are absolutely correct, and it is kind of wild to see all of this stuff get through. I think Odin's Call might be in a little bit of danger here because drones are kind of hard to kite up against here.
They are, and to be honest, we will see what happens as the Gator comp, the Florida Man, the much maligned Florida Man, goes burning straight towards Odin's in the blue on your screen. At the moment, Odin's kind of kiting away a little bit, not too far, not too close, just perfectly in the Goldilocks zone as they drop a bunch of drones.
Absolutely, and Odin's Call is definitely kind of trying to get in range here. It does look like the alligators are actually turning around here. Pretty strong ship. We do see webs on Anna and target painters out on Achilles' Gila. A lot of long-range damage from the Odin's Call side. We are going to see the damage get delayed a little bit on paid actors as these drones come in, but it does look like they're going for a Jackdaw, and I'm kind of feeling like this Jackdaw might be about to get alpha'd as soon as they end up touching him. Graves taking a little damage here, but is being pre-repped.
He is being pre-repped. We can see that on him. It looks like the damage dropped off. I briefly thought that you were going to be right and he was going to get pretty much volleyed because of the size of the chunks he was taking. But it seems like Blank Elchia in the Basilisk has his buddy in safe hands, shall we say, right now. Meanwhile, Anna Claven on the other side in the Gator starting to get chunked down a little bit. So 2 Scalpels versus a Basilisk in terms of rep power. I mean, it's not even the same boat, is it, Bart?
No, not really here. But it does seem like that they're doing a pretty good job of holding up. There really isn't all that much DPS on the Odin's Call side. Obviously Nighthawks, we see them do quite a bit of damage, but these are heavy missile Nighthawks, so they're not anywhere near as scary. I'm wondering if they're actually, I feel like Odin's might be defanging the drones a little bit. This
Basilisk is taking a lot of damage. Like, he just repped there, but he was down into low shield there, and he's not tackled or anything. So he's getting chunked from a distance. He's going back down again, so he is clearly going to be burning his XL ASB right now. When that runs out, if this damage keeps up, he's going to drop. So Odin's now at this point, they need to kill something before they lose their Basilisk. It's almost guaranteed they will lose it, though, at this point.
Yeah, it does look like they do have webs and paints on a Scalpel there, so they might be able to do a Logi trade. I feel like this Jackdaw should be able to take that Scalpel down very, very quickly here. But the Basilisk is definitely going to go down here shortly. Not fast enough to kite out. We're seeing the last couple XLASB charges here starting to bleed structure, and it's gone.
Oh, this Basilisk is holding on so much. He's like, here we go, he's at 8% structure, one more rep comes in, they need to kill it. There we go, it's down. If they didn't kill that, that would have been a extremely bad situation. But that's essentially a Logi trade, 2 Scalpels for Basilisk. So we're now in a DPS race, and the Florida Man is a pretty high DPS comp, but then again, so is Nighthawk triple Jackdaw.
It is, but it does look like the Florida Man comp is kind of on the back foot here because most of their ships are already taking damage. That Gila is almost going down just right off the bat here, and Odin's is in a really good position kiting-wise because those drones have to follow people around where the missiles just start applying quite quickly.
Yeah, I think that's kind of going to be the crux of it here. They're going to trade a Gila for not even a Jackdaw at this point. One other Gila of Achilles, he is webbed right now, so the damage is going to get onto him. It's not coming out at the minute, so I think we might be on reload for the Odin's Call team. They probably clipped, but then again, there's very little damage now coming out of paid actors at this point as well. So once the Odin's team reloads and starts firing again, this might be over pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I mean, those Jackdaws are applying quite a bit of damage still, even while the other ones reload. Looks like Paid Actors does finally get a web on something, so they will be able to apply damage to the Cyclone now, which is actually dropping quite quickly, but Cyclones have a pretty hefty self-rep of their own. Looks like that XLASB on the Cyclone is keeping it alive.
Yeah, and if they get that down, that's a fair big old chunk of points, which should bring them back close within the overtime threshold again. But now that they've lost another Gila, they are really starting to lose DPS, and their Hyena has made a bit of a mistake and managed to get himself webbed by something, probably that Rapier, and the Jackdaws are just going to press F1 and say goodbye. The Cyclone as well into Hull. The 2 Gators will kill this, no problem. And then the question is, what wins? A Nighthawk with 3 Jackdaw pals, or 1 or 2 hungry alligators?
Because it's probably 2 hungry alligators. But that being said, 3 Jackdaw pals, they are a surprisingly large amount of damage just because their application is so good. And it does look like having that Rapier up might kind of be huge here because you're probably not going to be able to apply any non-drone damage from the alligator. So
one Jackdaw
this
dead.
is still going. Okay.
Yeah,
mind.
so I mean, alligators traditionally usually eat birds, basically. And what we have here is an almost totally bird-based comp, and someone left a sword. So if they can just defang more of these Jackdaws, they might be able to just, if they're buffer fit, yeah, they are buffer fit. So this is just a race at this point, and they don't have anybody tackled.
No, I do see a Jackdaw going very, very slowly. I'm wondering if they're going to try to do some beacon plays. It does look like they're set up in such a way to avoid these drones. So Odin's Call is just going to have to like really outpilot paid actors right here, because as soon as those alligator drones get on you, you're dead. But we
got one Gator doing a micro jump drive from the center. He's micro jump driving out, so he's going to try and survive. This is Wind Jackal, has just MJD'd, I think, from the center. Yep, he did. Landed at 114, so he might survive now. His drones, the drones from that side, are going to have to trundle their way across. I don't think he has any form of local reps though, so he is just an alligator sitting 110 kilometers away in Hull. But the Nighthawk of Toastbro is starting to go down, so this is pretty big. Like, if they can kill this Nighthawk with Anna Claven, the last remaining in range alligator, which I think they're going to do, then that micro jump drive might have just saved them.
Yeah, it might. It looks like the Rapier is about to get in range and at least keep it webbed and painted, but the Nighthawk is going down really, really fast. So the
Wind Jackal heading for another beacon, by the way. I don't think he's going to make it because of Bloomy Sig. They need to kill this Nighthawk before that Gator goes down, and then it is a single Gator versus 2 Jackdaws and a Rapier. There we go. Nighthawk down. Oh boy.
That's always more interesting when it goes like this. Well, we are. There is a point. It looks like Paid Actors is ahead on points here, and there's only 29 seconds left. But I think Wind Jackal drops here too, just from drones. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's down. He's down. So it is just 107 to 115 now with Odin's Call. Odin's have won this unless this
overtime.
Single gal. Oh, of course, we're going to go to overtime. Of course. I almost forgot about the brand new overtime rules. We're within 30 points of each other, so we are going to go to overtime. These ships are going to get heat bonuses. So now it's down to Anna Claven in this remaining Gator to catch something. Odin's need to just kite. But I Have a Short Name might also have 0 ships soon, by the looks of it.
Yeah, so does the heat bonus, so I don't know how much that's really going to help here with the Gator. Like, it's not like it can do more damage and just go faster.
He's doing enough damage though. I Have a Short Name is about to go down. There he goes. He is dead. So okay, now it's 116 to 115. So now Odin's have to somehow, with a single Jackdaw, kill an alligator. Now this alligator does not have any self rep, and they have 2 minutes to do it. So Jackdaws do put out a lot of DPS. The Rapier puts out an okay amount of DPS. But look at the attack bars. Like the attack bar for Odin is not 0. They have damage here. They need to just go all in. They need to like put on the big boy pants and come flying in and try and just take down this Gator in the next 2 minutes.
Well, we're seeing those Gator drones coming up to the Jackdaw right now. As soon as they get in range, I mean, I don't think Jackdaws outrun Gator drones. Like, Gators are actually very, very fast. If you ever tried to outrun one, then I mean, all those Floridamen, they know exactly what happens there. So, but whew, this is really close. I think that Jackdaw's going to go down though. Look at
I think he's
starting to hit it really hard.
Yeah, like unless he sort of MJDs and pulls those drones away and then comes back in. I mean, they have a minute and a half. We haven't seen much damage land on the Gator at this point. Just the Jackdaw. And let the Jackdaw.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, really good piloting on both ends here, though. Like, regardless of what's going on, like they're doing fantastic jobs from both sides. But
yeah, exciting match. I mean, there we go. The drones have landed back on top of the Jackdaw, so he is burning now fast, trying to get ahead of them, but it's not looking so good as he goes into Hull. He's got 2 Imperial Navy infiltrators that are keeping up with them extremely well, so he is going to go down, and it'll just be a Rapier left to try and take down an alligator. I don't see that happening. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, Rapiers are definitely not known for being the highest DPS ship, or even in probably the top 300 of the highest DPS ships in EVE Online. So, I don't know, maybe the Alligator will be able to take it out, but I don't think the Rapier's finishing off the Gator.
Yeah, I mean, there's still 25 seconds left, I was going to say. I thought there was 1:25, but that's it. GFs are coming in local from the Odin's team. They recognize what's happened. The match is over at this point, even if there's still some time left. That was probably the most exciting match of the day. A little bit of back and forth, and a good example of going to overtime with a tight match and allowing that Gator to just claw things back from the brink of defeat.
I'm just saying, we can get something cooler.
out a set versus the we're gonna call it the Florida Man comp, I guess. Dual Gator, Dual Gila, of course, CCP Overload and Black Bart Pirate showing off their expertise of reptilian biology, I guess. Let's go to you first, Jintan. Also, welcome, Jintan, Dujek one. We don't have a lot of time to talk. Both of these teams, or rather, the Scimitar was banned out during the ban phase. Both teams still bringing shield comps. Why is that?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting point, and it's part of kind of the game theory that you end up with when you get two teams that are well practiced and have a well-rounded selection of comps. Because you see here, both teams were expecting the other to bring Rush, as neither team had really banned out anything that's part of it. You know, you just see that Scimitar ban and maybe the Kizrael ban from Odin's Call in that direction. But that meant that two battleship control was almost perfectly available. And that, in turn, leads people to want to bring Rush. And then both teams decided to bring something to counter Rush off the back of that, with both of them bringing these bonus webs. Lord Servant in the Hyena and Martin Conrad there in the Rapier. They were both trying to utilize range control. However, Odin's Call committed to and being able to win off the back of that.
Well, you are absolutely right, for at least as much as I was able to hear of that. Thank you so much, Discord. Great company, great product. We're going to go ahead and move right along. Dujek, we'll start with you. Up next, we have Magnet Shining Geschoitz 418 versus Hidden Ship Village Idiot Contract Scam Esports. Magnet Shining Geschoitz 418 banning the on the Orthrus, the Sleipnir, the Kizrael. Dujek, the Gila, Deacon, Sleipnir, Armageddon bans. Anything stick out to you there?
I think the Armageddon Navy is interesting, as is the Sleipnir. I think that the Sleipnir is more likely to be a rush against them than Kite, but there is always the smallest chance. Armageddon Navies have been more popular with Rapid Heavies and have good newts, so I'm guessing that if I had to pick those two together, I would say that medium guns of some sort might be, like, they want to go mid-range. They don't want to get their gun.
Yes. Okay. Well, again, as much as I heard of that, that was great. Jen, let's talk very quickly about Baz's team, the Abaddon, the Orthrus, the Sleipnir Kids. Anything seem unusual to you there?
Obviously, the Abaddon ban, that's something we don't see quite a lot of. It seems like maybe they're scared of big walls of EHP sitting there and projecting across the arena. But who knows, really? Those are some generic power bans.
Yeah, Sleipnir, Kizrael, seeing a lot of those. Orthrus, obviously, seeing a lot of that. And the Abaddon, seeing a lot of that today. Very strange. So we're going to go ahead and move down to the arena. Once again, CCP Overload, Black Bart Pirate for Magnet Shining Geschoitz 418 versus Hidden Ship Village Idiot Contract Scam Esports. We'll be back here at the desk in just a couple of minutes.
Arena, it looks like we are back once again. This time we see the very unusual triple Harbinger comp supported with dual Vigilance. Kind of interested to see how this one goes. It's either going to be balls to the wall, brawly brawl, or it's going to be kite away and hope to use beams. And based on the absolute cowardice warp ends of 50 kilometers, I think it's probably going to be the latter. Bart, what else are we looking at here?
It looks like that this is some kind of a... It's definitely a shield rush of some kind. I say some kind because it's probably not my favorite shield rush, my second favorite shield rush, or my 10th favorite shield rush that I've ever seen. But the mass zero warping from all of these Cyclone fleets, Ospreys, Caracal Navies, etc., they are definitely going to try and run in. I think that they might have gotten outplayed a little bit here because it looks like the other team successfully did predict what they were going to do, warped in at 50, and like you said, a ton of beam lasers and railguns on these Vigilance and Harbingers.
Yeah, I mean, the Loki does have those long-range webs. The Crow is pretty good at tackling, so it's going to be down to, can those beams and railguns take out the Osprey of Gene Hurt before the Cyclones start to get on top of them? I mean, that Osprey is going to find pain wherever it goes, so we'll see what happens. And as predicted, the Crow just overheat F1 and the damage landing on that Osprey immediately.
Oh my gosh, it's like we've seen these once or twice before. What are they gonna do? Blow up the Osprey right away? And it looks like they're doing a ton of damage. Osprey is doing a relatively decent job kiting away. I don't think it has the time to get out of range here, and it does look like it is actually just dropping right away here. Osprey's already down, but there's a pretty good amount of tackle. Looks like Starlight's Harbinger has been tackled, and quite a bit of damage being applied to them as well.
Yeah, and I see the...
I have no idea what's happening. Oh. Well, it does look like we did lose the Harbinger. Had a little bit of a Discord snafu there. Caracal Navy is taking a ton of damage here now as well, and Harbinger trading. So now that they're all in here brawling and just smashing into each other, ships are dying quite quickly here. They were not really able to kite away in time. Crucifier dropping right here quickly too. Does look like this is still anyone's game, though. The team with the Vigilance, the greatest ship of all time, seem to still have a Logi. That being said, he's dropping quite quickly now, and it doesn't seem that Pelnith's Cyclone Fleet issue is getting wrecked.
Yeah, I mean, that Augur obviously Tech 1 resists, and when it goes up against 2 Fleet Cyclones, it's not going to last very long. Webs across that whole team now, so the advantages of their beams and railguns is completely neutralized with short range. The sheer amount of damage coming out of that Hidden Ship Village Idiot Contract Scam esports team is a lot. Even if they lose this Fleet Cyclone, which I'm not even convinced they will at this point, because I think this Harbinger is going to die first.
It's getting really close here. I'm not sure, but I am pretty sure you're correct on that. And I mean, you know, Vigilance are pretty cool ships. Something to be said, both Vigilance are actually not tackled, though one of them is about to be, because it does appear to be flying back into the Ham Rush, which is not necessarily the best plan of all time. But I don't think these Rail Vigilance are going to be able to take it. That Cyclone Fleet issue should be out of reps at this point, but you know, it might go down, but the Vigilant is hard tackled. Thoski and is now taking a massive amount of damage.
Yeah, he's still